Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Hey, you know that guy who just before the green flag keys up his mic and asks, "Anybody got a setup?" Well, this is him. This is Adam, and hey, Adam needs some help. On the other hand, this guy over here, this is Steve. Steve is a solid racer and he knows his way around the garage. Steve's problem is time. With a job and a family, he can't find enough time to build competitive setups and to race as often as he likes. But as luck would have it, Steve knows a secret. He lets the Majors Garage crew chiefs do the setup work so he can focus on the racing. At majorsgarage.com, Steve can get setups for over 60 cars on the iRacing service. So no matter what series he wants to jump into, he is covered. Somebody, anybody, really should tell Adam. See you at the garage.
Welcome all to SimSpeed TV for the first round of 2025 in the Majors Series. The international region has returned for this year, and it is our pleasure to bring it to you live here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Kick on all of SimSpeed's channels. Bringing it to you today is myself, Reese Gardner, with Dan Yeaman alongside me in the commentary box. Jay Kennedy pressing the buttons behind the scenes. We're starting things off, Dan, with the return of a classic. The last few years, the opening round of the season has been a little different, but now we are returning to the Daytona 2.4 to gear things up for the sports car racing season.
Indeed, Reece. Thank you very much for the introduction there, and great to be back with you once again, indeed. And yeah, we had to run back the numbers. 2021 was the last edition of, well, call it the Daytona 2.4, the Majors 2.4, whatever you wish to do so. But yeah, we come back to Daytona Beach here on the east coast of Florida to return to what they like to call the world center of racing here at this venue, and of course gearing up for the real world Rolex 24 in a couple of weeks' time. Also, of course, the iRacing Daytona 24 next weekend, as well as the iRacing Raw that was run just this weekend as well. So it has been a busy track, virtual and real. And, well, we add in the Majors 2.4 to the mix here once again as well this year.
We do indeed, and well, if you're familiar with sports car racing, you know this track like the back of your hand. Daytona International Speedway, been around since the late 1950s. The road course has been around for just about that long as well, and the 24-hour sports car race here has been a fixture of the international calendar for decades. Plenty of great opportunities for passes around here, particularly into turns 1, 3, 5, and 6, and the Le Mans chicane, or what we affectionately like to call the bus stop, is always a point of contention. It's one of those turns where your downforce level is going to make quite a bit of difference, and you need to get it right for the run onto the oval towards the start finish.
Yeah, 100%. And with the way that track limits are policed, if you get it just slightly wrong, you'll be okay. It'll be an off-track penalty incident point within the iRacing system. But if you cut just a little bit too much exiting out of the Le Mans chicane, that will slap you with the dreaded iRacing slowdown penalty. And that will see drivers having to take the high line or back off a lot through NASCAR turns 3 and 4, trying to clear that before they get back to the infield and come back off the oval at turn 1.
Absolutely. Well, to bring things into this event, we should probably check out exactly what we're going to be doing for the whole of the year. The schedule for the 2025 Majors Series is really a fantastic one. We are starting things off, of course, here at Daytona, but the Majors Series is always a test of versatility, isn't it, Dan? Next round is going to be the Intimidator, and well, there's a few wild cards this year. Regions running different tracks, and the ones highlighted in orange in the International region. We're going to Bathurst, Motegi, we're going to Watkins Glen, and then Suzuka to round off the season. But in the Pacific and European, in the Americas and European regions, they're going to be running slightly different.
Yeah, they are indeed. And yeah, for those who maybe only got used to the Rangers series last year when it was just the Pacific and Atlantic, Pacific is now returned to its the traditional name of the Americas region, and the Atlantic side has been rechristened as the European series. And yeah, great to see that whilst the Major Series is very much meant to be about one big ability to race, and drivers are welcome to jump across all of the regions this year, although they will, I believe, only compete for points in one particular region if they've chosen to sign up for the full season. But yeah, we get to see these region-specific choices, as you can see, notably, yeah, the 4 track-specific selections, but also note there, round 8 will be the World Series of Asphalt at New Smyrna Speedway, but it will be unique cars for every region, in addition to the unique tracks as already highlighted that you said there, Reese.
Yes, we're running the late model in the International region for round 8. But aside from that, it's a who's who of global races. Classic Daytona 500 for round 2. Really looking forward to that one. And the NASCAR 87s, it certainly turned things up when we ran it a season or 2 back. I'm looking forward to seeing the 87 NASCARs return. For this event in particular, well, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's a 2.4-hour race, 2 hours and 24 minutes. So it's set as 2 hours and 25 minutes in the session, but yeah, basically 2.4 hours, a tenth of a 24-hour race. We have Hypercar, we have LMP2, and we have GT3 on track. 3 classes competing for honors today. There isn't going to be rain, but there is going to be the potential for virtual safety cars, so we'll have to keep an eye out for that. And in terms of strategy, well, there's an infinite number of possibilities, but largely we're going to be expecting 29 to 30 lap stints in the GT3s. The GTPs are going to have to take a half stop somewhere along the way, or most of them will at least, and the LMP2s we're expecting half-hour stints, maybe a little more, out of those cars for the entirety of the race.
Yeah, indeed. So that will be important. Yeah, the virtual safety cars is going to be dependent on how big an incident gets, as to whether it's determined it's needed to be called. So that's the main condition and trigger there that we'll be watching out for. If we see about 3 cars off the road in an incident, that may be grounds to see a VSC called. And that's probably the big one for me, I think, we're looking forward to, because otherwise this would just be a lights to flag race, and the strategy is then down to how much fuel you can save consistently over the run. But throw in these virtual safety cars, and maybe drivers go, oh, I've done enough, I can now come in short, fill up, and that will be fascinating to watch, really, as to how much drivers are going to change things up based on the appearance of a VSC, should we have them in the race.
Well, in terms of weather, we have some very pleasant conditions out there. It's late afternoon in virtual Daytona, time and date set for the 25th of January, and we have only 21 degrees Celsius track temperature with 19-degree air temperature. That means the tyres are going to be a bit skittish coming out of the pit lane, but once they warm up, there's going to be plenty of grip available, and God knows you're going to need that grip, especially when the protos come around to lap the GT3s for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be the ebb and flow and the ever-present game here at Daytona. Yeah, and also with how drivers have chosen to prepare their cars, the prevalence of needing a low downforce setup to be competitive around the oval section of the track does sort of, box you in a bit, but maybe you go for a little bit extra wing, perhaps, even though it's dry and grippy conditions, to make sure that you've got the ability to get offline a bit. That'll be, I think, will be fun, interesting to watch, as you said, because even things like the kink there on the infield, which part of me is called the dog leg corner there, turn 4, depending on setups in my own personal testing for at the Daytona 2.4 next weekend here on iRacing. It's very easy for a GT3 car to get loose through there, because you could otherwise normally take it flat out. So you've got to keep an eye on that if you've gone for a low downforce configuration here today in GT3, or even the other cars. If you get offline, how much room you've got left to play with once you go off that line.
Yeah, and we're seeing here one of the big factors for today, the slipstream. We're going to be seeing an awful lot of that over the course of this race. Most of this racetrack is a NASCAR oval. We do have the tight and twisty infield, of course, which the cars are entering now, but once you get onto the oval, you got to make sure that you're within about a second of the car in front so that you can get the slipstream and that straight line benefit. That's going to be another big factor here today.
And the other thing to note there is also, things like, coming off the oval and also watching how the drivers are. Here's here. There's a couple of GT3 cars with one of our Ferrari 499p hypercars here trying to work his way through. It's you've got Dean Mackay in the TriStar Racing Porsche here on screen, closely followed by Marcus Knizka in the McLaren, and then you've got Robbie Bradbury in the Ford Mustang, and all being passed by Stephen Hassett. And you can see they've also got one of our Cadillac, Scott Hazler in the Frogley Juiced Racing Cadillac. They're now coming past them all, and just all of the wiggling there as well. Speaking of McLaren's, Reese, it does mean we do get to see some glorious flames. It's not quite as illustrious as the fire-breathing exhaust we saw often the MP4-12C GT3 cars. But it looks like our 720S Evo machines here, Reese, have got a little bit of kick to offer there, and that's a nice, almost higher. That's definitely an updated flick of flame there.
Yeah, very nice indeed. I love seeing that exhaust flame coming out of the McLarens with that V8 engine powering this car. Sam Sutton for Orbit Drop Bear Motorsport. Sutton, of course, is a man who's made the rounds quite a bit in the Australian sim racing community. He was my teammate for a period of time, and so I know how he drives. He is definitely a fast one, and he's driving for Orbit Drop Bear Motorsport here. Orbit Drop Bear turning up with some carbon fiber inspired liveries for this one, Dan, and looking very quick.
They are indeed, and well, I have to probably, if you could put my hand up and say, well, Sam and Harold Studley here in LMP2 class, well, they're both part of my team. Orbit Drop is, proudly say, is one of the 5 co-managers. Sam is actually one of the 5 co-managers of Orbit Drop Bear as well. And yes, carbon fiber on our cars today because, well, come this Wednesday, the 15th of January, we'll be publicly unveiling our updated designs courtesy of officially partnering with iLiveries going forward in 2025 and hopefully beyond. So we actually just unveiled them to the team last night internally. They've been quite impressed with that, and so just getting ready to make them public later this week. So carbon fiber for today indeed, but that does mean indeed they stand out in their own way compared to the other team paints here on track.
Yes, indeed. There's no missing Garen Batten here in the Fusion Gold Euro machine. Lovely teal highlights on the current fastest LMP2 in practice. Of course, qualifying has already been run for this event. There was pre-qualifying that took place in the weeks leading up to the race, and now the grid has already been set. So there isn't going to be any more build-up to this race other than the next 90 seconds. We're going to be going straight into the race session here and see who's going to be starting on pole in all of our classes. Another team that has returned for this season is Middle Finger Racing, and Dan Stevens has once again pulled out all the stops to bring us some fantastic liveries for the Mustangs that MFR is going to be driving, and it'll be a bit easier for us to tell who's who within that team. They've got the driver names up on the windscreen banner as well. It'll be excellent to see how they go here. MFR have been a very committed team to the Majors series.
Yeah, they sure have indeed. Even though whilst my exposure to the Majors is exclusively through broadcasting, I was actually going to drive today. I made a bit of a hash of getting my schedule right, and then conveniently Jay saved me at the 12th hour by pulling me into the commentary box in some respects. Otherwise, I would have been off wandering elsewhere, other splits. But yeah, I mean, I've seen the times I have done broadcasting with you and here for the Major Series. I've seen MFR always represent strongly, and indeed looking very sharp once again to kick off 2025 here with this design. And yes, thankfully because they all are running the same paint, we do get to see the drivers' names to help us spot things out from a glance on the front side.
And Robert Northway here, finally getting to use the number 1 on his car. Of course, the international region was not run last year. The last time it was run was 2023, and Robert Northway was the driver's champion. So now finally he'll be able to have that number 1 emblazoned on his car in the Kiwi Sim Racing Speed Nation machine. Let's see how he does here in the LMP2 class. He's always been quick, he's always been on the marks, and now he'll be preparing for a potential run at victory here as we switch on over to the race session and get things started off for the 2025 International Majors season. Well, starting on pole position in our GTP and hypercar class will be the 680 of Sam Sutton. Lovely stuff there. Great time in the Orbit Drop Bear machine. Ewan Baker in the Kiwi Sim Racing Speed Nation, number 34, going to start second place. Luke Santos and another Acura starting third alongside the second Ferrari of Stephen Hassett. And then in fifth place, we have Zeke Kabani and yet another Acura. Top of the Cadillacs is Bevan Moyes for the Brashies Tech number 613. Brandon Grotch for Frog Leap Juice Racing is going to start seventh in another Cadillac. Jason Lottridge, another Ferrari for Fusion Silver International in eighth place. Thomas Hens, good to see him back here in the Henry James Racing Cadillac. And Ben Doughty in the second of the Kiwi Sim Racing cars, another Cadillac in 10th. Dean Mole also returning. Great to see him back in number 31 in the Kingsman Racing machine. And Scott Hazler, the second Frog Leap Juice Racing Cadillac there, with Julian Mookie in the second Brashies Tech car, starting 13th and last of our GTPs. Dwayne Burns has got pole position in LMP2 alongside Garen Batten. Harold Stadler starts third for Orbit Drop Bear Motorsport. He's followed by Ray Partridge in fourth. Robert Northway starting in fifth here to defend his international title, with Travis Walling in sixth. Hayden Kirk and Shane Bowen are your last of the LMP2s here today. Pole position in GT3, meanwhile, Lachlan Cable, Evolution Racing Team, with James Walker alongside. Mark Newton and Dylan Jordan on the second row, with Dean McKay and Jason Martin. Good to see Jason Martin back as well. 754 starting in sixth. And we move on through the rest of our GT3s here, with Stevens and Stewart seventh and eighth. Gavin Cox and Jake Jackson rounding out our top 10. And Leon Dupries, Marcus Konitska, Robbie Bradbury, John Ebersol, Chris Yatito, Gavin Barber, Robert Deloach, Bradley Sini, Stuart Elder, and David Johnson. Round out our 41 cars here to start off the race here. Pace car is already in, and we're getting things going. The green flag in the air, ready to fly. Sam Sutton is going to lead us away. And the 2025 Majors season starts now. All about the run down into turn one. Got to be careful here coming into the first turn at Daytona. Very easy to lose the rear end, but Sutton defends the lead successfully from Ewan Baker as the LMP2s get their race started. Dwayne Burns, excellent job from pole position, but he's already under pressure. Garen Batten trying under brakes round the outside to get the lead, and he is going to take it. Excellent job from Batten, and Northway already trying to gain an extra position himself as the GTs now find their way into the first turn. We have a problem for Robert Northway. He's been sent off the racetrack in the LMP2s, and there's already drama in the GT3s. One of the Mercs losing its rear wing.
Oh, Northway's rejoined and made contact with one of the GT3s in the international horseshoe. Two cars around, three cars around in the horseshoe, and it's caused more collisions as they're trying to rejoin and dodge. Multiple cars stopped in the horseshoe here. I'm seeing one of our 1.9 Mercedes has got a blown motor and trying to limp it back to the pits now. Virtual safety car deployed by race control as a result was Mark Newton, the middle finger Mustang that went off the road. You've got Jason Martin in the gravel as well, damaged and trying to crab back to the pits race. It has been a bloodbath here that's only taken a handful of turns to unfold, unfortunately.
That's such a shame there. Robert Northway, unfortunately, he did rejoin as the GT3s were coming up on him, and it was a clean rejoin, but unfortunately he braked a bit too late for the horseshoe and locked the rear wheels. That sent him into Mark Newton's Mustang, and that's what triggered all of the chaos in the GT field to start things off here. A messy start to the season for Majors International, but now the field gets an opportunity to reset.
Yeah, having considered potentially running the LMP2 before I was called up to broadcast. As another issue here in the hypercar class, number 13 machine. I can actually find him here in the list, Ziki Kabani. So around at turn 6 and cleans up another one of our cars there. Our track, I'll just actually filter through this thing. Might have been Bevan Moyes or Julian Mookins. It's Bevan Moyes who's lost a rear wing. In the second of our Tech 1 machines. So unfortunately, that's who's gotten clipped up in there. So I was just also chasing down the virtual safety car rules, because it is somewhat new for Majesties. We're going to have another replay here of the staff LMP2. So Northway there, right side of screen, pops over the curb, and he's done it all by himself, unfortunately, there. Bottoms out and into the grass. But yes, as we watch Northway rejoin, virtual safety car rules here for events like this. Maintain race pace until you pass the pit exit, as there's the lock-up, cold tyres into the rears, spins Newton in a slow, painful spin. But then Newton's attempt to get out of the way causes more dramas as he gets to the grass eventually.
Yeah, the 753 of Jake Jackson was unfortunately involved in that. That's why one of the big rules of racing is to hold your brakes when you've had a spin. At least the cars can try and find a way around you then, but if you spin up the wheels and try to get going, then you might have some problems. This is the onboard view from Jason Martin. You'll see Northway rejoining up ahead here, and then the puff of smoke, the slide from Northway. He finds his way around, or attempts to at least, and just tags Mark Newton as Newton tried to get back going, and Martin was crabbing there. So unfortunately, mega damage, and he's in the pits getting that damage repaired. So not ideal start for many drivers further down in the field, but there hasn't been a change up the top in GTP. Sam Sutton and Ewan Baker still your top two, but Stephen Hassett has gotten into third over Luke Santos.
Yep, so a little bit of shuffling there that we missed with all the chaos that we were trying to unpick there live before the virtual safety car was called. And so to come back to those rules on the virtual safety car, so if it is called by race control, drivers are to maintain racing speed until the race leader passes the pit exit. Race leader then jumps on the brakes and engages the pit speed limit, which here at Daytona comes in at a brisk 88 kilometers an hour, which I think would be coming up on 50 miles an hour, I would suspect. And then everyone else forms up into the group, and then all activates the pit speed limiter. We are now getting ready for a class split. So we are going to move drivers such as Robert Northway and Zeke Kabani, who are back out on track, having gone into the pits to fix up their cars. They will be moved back in front of the GT3s, and in Zeke's case, also the LMP2s. So they are now, all our cars in the safety car queue are up on the high side through NASCAR 3 and 4. And so there you go, GTPs are now cleared. So in this case, it's just Zeke at the moment, but he will be cleared to move through to the back of the GTP class race, and that hopefully means we will avoid any issues with drivers in these faster cars being in a bit of a tight spot on the restart with slower cars in front.
Yeah, here's hoping, as we have a couple of GTPs coming to the pits, Bevan Moyes and Jason Lockridge, and Moyes was the one who lost his rear wing from that unfortunate spin that we saw for Zeke Kabani. And yeah, I'm not sure why Lockridge is in the pits, but he might just be looking to top up his fuel tank and try and sort of reverse engineer the strategy from here up to a point. It's good news for Jason Martin as well. He's gotten his repairs done, and he's managed to get back out onto the racetrack. That's good. He is a lap or so down on the rest of his field, though, so it's going to be a tough job for Jason Martin in the Porsche from here on out. There's Robert Northway just disappearing off screen, making his way through the GTs to resume running at the back of the LMP2 field, probably feeling a bit sheepish about the incident that happened at this very corner. Here's the replay on board from Dan Stevens here. Started in 5th in the GT3s, and it was an interesting run through turn 1 for him, but you'll see Robert Northway pop into frame here, just about here. See that puff of smoke up ahead? There's Northway making his way back onto the racetrack, Let's see how close of a call this was for Dan Stevens. Saw it happen in front of him and thought, okay, better go there, and only just avoided getting hit by his teammate.
Yeah, he is the one driver who gets through on the inside there, so that's worked out all right for him. And yeah, to promote himself up to second place in the GT3 class ahead of drivers like Dean Mackay. He's still made up 2 spots despite being out wide there, having to dodge it all in his Porsche. We also got drivers like Marcus Knitska up 8 spots to get through all the chaos. 9 spots gained from John Ebersol, and then further back 10 spots gained for Bradley Sinney in the GT3s. So it's gone very well indeed. It looks like we're almost ready to restart the race, but we've got one driver just being cycled forward in the GTP class, and so
Lockridge.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so Jason Lockridge, after that pit stop there, has been permitted to rejoin the GTP class, and we are now in the hands of Sam Sutton for this race restart. Once he goes, everyone can go. We'll now wait to see how late that will be. 120 kilometers an hour, 75 mile an hour pacing speed here at this end of the safety car phase. And Ewan Baker is right on his gearbox, Reese. He does not want to give this man an inch on the restart.
Certainly not. There was some talk before the race of the downforce levels for the Acura. Some Acura drivers are running a higher downforce setup, which is going to hurt them on the straights as the race restarts in the hands of Sam Sutton. Some drivers are trimming them out, which means they're going to be very slow on the infield. Let's see what Robert Northway decided to run in this race here as Sutton gets into turn 1 without any issue, but he'll be under a lot of pressure from Ewan Baker as the LMP2s get started again, with the GTs actually quite close to them. Robert Northway already making up a spot. Yep, there's some smoke there. It looks like Brandon Groch has had an issue in his GTP, number 615, spinning on the exit of turn 1, it seems.
Looks like, thankfully, all the GT cars able to negotiate him there off the line, which means it is quite manageable in many respects. But then a car wide at the International Horseshoe at the back of the GT3 field, Leon Deprez is back on track, but now a little detached from the rest of his classes. We watch these guys try and get some teeth into their tyres, running at racing speed side by side with the dogleg there, the 21 machine. Part of it from Feynman with Dylan Jordan, and that would have been Stuart Elder. It looks like he's dropping back there in the 115 McLaren. Thankfully they got through that one A-OK. And Deprez actually pulling over to the side of the road, and it has ejected back to the pits. And a mechanical black flag being shown for Mark Middle Finger Racing 099, and it is up here at the National Horseshoe. Let's go to the Major Series replays. Oh no!
Oh, he just completely missed his braking point.
Oh, that's a very unfortunate big mistake from Mark there, and yeah, he's not gotten away with it thanks to that mechanical black flag, and for Leon it would appear no good for him either as a result. Back to live pictures, race side-by-side drag race here in the middle of our GTP field with a couple of Ferraris. It's Jason Lockridge actually with Julian Mookie just to his inside. 15 thousandths of a second, 33 thousandths to make turn 1, and Lockridge around the outside will be ahead by turn 1.
Yep, indeed, and looked like a little bit of a lock-up for one of the drivers ahead. Not sure who it was, but regardless, we'll find our way through to Dean Moll in the number 31. He's chasing down Bevan Moyes here in the battle of the Cadillacs as Lockridge continues to close in on them in the Ferrari. Still quite a while away from drivers even thinking about their first pit stops here. The LMP2s have the smallest fuel tanks of all the classes here. They'll only be able to make half an hour, maybe 40 minutes if they save a bit of fuel. Meanwhile, the GTPs can last the better part of an hour, as can the GT3s. Oh my lord, that is certainly a bit skittish there for Bevan Moyes.
Well, if there's another visual warning if the danger is going slightly offline with marbles and debris, although you'd think here at Daytona, debris less likely when you're re-entering the asphalt of the oval, but perhaps yeah, a little warning there indeed for drivers. Or, and again, is that perhaps a case of a car which is trimmed out to the max, suffering on acceleration? How's that there for suffering on acceleration? Brandon Groch's car in the 615 is unfortunately just snapping there away from his power down, unless maybe he got the curb with the right rear tyre, but unclear from that angle. Because the curbs with that section are very tough.
Yeah, I reviewed it myself, and it was definitely just acceleration, the car spinning. The tyres do take a couple of laps to heat up in the GTPs. They have one of the newer versions, if not the newest version of iRacing's tyre model, and drivers are still getting used to that, as Bevan Moyers just a little twitch there on exit, and big old slide, just manages to keep it out of the wall on the run onto NASCAR 1 and 2. Daytona International Speedway seems like a very simple circuit from the air, but it has got an awful lot of subtleties and nuances that you have to negotiate.
Yes, I'm just being told to now start keeping tabs on drivers who have had to use up their fast repair to stay in the race, and the answer is those numbers are starting to rack up pretty quick. I don't have certain numbers at this stage, but I'm looking at it, Leon Dupreez and Mark Newton both still in the pit lane, and actually before they came in, at least for me, there's an estimation they both used their fast repairs. So they might be already in the dumps, but we'll have to check in with them later on as we've got the battle here on track. Fourth place in GDP, Thomas Hinz trying to clear out ahead of Scott Hazler and Ben Doty, as you've got yourself three of our Cadillacs all in a row here. Team Jing Shifters, Frogley Juice Racing and KSR Speed Nation here all duking it out. The biggest problem for them though is they've already lost the ground of your top three. Well, 4 seconds to Luke Santos in third place and 8 seconds off the race lead at this stage. Again, VSCs might get them back into play, of course, Reese, but now got to start thinking the long game here. In this situation, you've got air in front and behind, so make good use of the clear track.
Change of scenery for Thomas Hinz. First time we've seen a full body shot of him on Zoom. Usually it's a view of his face or his feet. Now we can see, yeah, he's in a different room as well. No bed in the background. So showing off his rig there is Hinzy, and looking very good indeed. That's given him quite a bit of pace as he makes his way up to the corner onto the oval. Behind him, though, the battle continuing between Hazler and Doughty, and Ben will be focusing on the exit here. Got to try and stick to the inside as much as you can there and get a good line onto the oval. Here's where the slipstream is really picked up. But it's going to be difficult for a lot of cars to really make that lunge. You know, you can pick up the slipstream, but if you're running downforce slightly higher than the car behind, you probably won't go anywhere all that fast. And you just got to focus on your exit from the bus stop. It looked lovely and clean there for Ben Doughty, and Scott Hazler will now fall under pressure coming into turn one. But the question is, does Doughty want to make the move? Or does he want to try and get into fuel save mode? We'll have to wait and see on that. Replay, meanwhile, of the lead for GT. Looks like Lachlan Capel losing a spot there to Dean Mackay, and actually, hang on, no, sorry, yeah, 12 spots lost for Lachlan Capel. Not just then, not too sure exactly what happened to him there, but there's been some dramas.
Yeah, I'm looking for it now myself. Looks like we found it on the broadcast as well. Coming down into the Western Horseshoe. There goes the rear, and the rear is gone in full. So, and then just backs it up out of the way, and then able to get going is offline and able to stay mostly clear of the GT3s coming through, as well as other cars, because I know it's a prototype coming through as well, but that I think is partly traffic. So there you go. Trouble for your pole sit-up in the GT3 category here in this international region. And, well, I know he'll be kicking himself behind his virtual cockpit. And he's now got a lot of work to do. 8 seconds off the class lead doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it was fairly close up the top end of town after pre-qualifying. So now going to have to really work for it here in this next phase of the race to get back to where he thinks he should be.
Indeed, he's wasting no time putting pressure on the battles up ahead of him here. He's behind Dylan Jordan, Matt Stewart and Chris Yatito. Chris here in the number 27 McLaren, really coming under pressure from the Mercedes of Matt Stewart. And Capel takes the outside line on the way out of the corner. So we'll take care coming into this infield section of the lap. Gently does it into the horseshoe. A lot of pressure at the front of this battle as Capel is still struggling to try and find his way past the Porsche. and they've got a long train of cars right behind them as well. Is there any kind of lunge from the Mercedes coming into the next turn? No, but it's all about the exit here. Chris Yatito will certainly be hoping that he has what it takes to keep the position coming into the bus stop, but didn't look like the best of exits for him, and the Mercedes of Stewart will now have the slipstream. He's going to have to commit somewhere, and the door is left open to the inside. This is going to be a change for 9th place in GT. Now, how hard does Yatito fight this? He doesn't fight it at all. He lets the Mercedes go. A wise choice, I think, especially this early in the race. So that's the state of things in GT right now. Dean Mackay holding on from Marcus Konietzka, who's found himself in 2nd place, and it's on for the lead as well in GTP. They're already coming around to lap the GTs. Sam Sutton and Ewan Baker nigh on inseparable here, with a good amount of this race being run and still plenty left to go. But for the now, it looks like Sutton has this race under control. Ewan Baker, I don't think, is putting him under much pressure. He's probably focusing on strategy, on fuel saving a little bit at this stage too. Here we go then. MFR Mustangs holding on to this pack, and looks like Gavin Cox and Daniel Stevens are the cars in question as the GTPs try to find their way through. That's going to result in a split for the lead of the race. Ewan Baker losing touch with Sam Sutton, and that's just one of the things you got to deal with in multi-class racing. Sometimes you won't get the optimal line or the optimal run through a part of the circuit, and you're going to have to find a way to get that back somewhere else. Hope the same thing happens to your rival. There goes Stevens past Cox, a change of the teammates, but Gavin's going to lose a further position to James Walker here in the Mercedes, who's had a pretty good run to start things off here. Yes, he is 3 positions down from where he started. I think he might have been involved in that starting crash on lap 1, but regardless, he's managed to keep himself in the fight, and he's wasting no time trying to put himself back up. Cox, though, peeking to the inside. There's a little bit of pressure on there, but not much besides. And that will sort things out through the bus stop. Cox losing time there, as there's a problem, a big problem for Travis Walling in the Udox Gooby. Number 90 LMP2. Looks like the front right of that car has been damaged severely. Let's see if we can get a replay of that at some point. Walling having to tow back to the pits, and he'll become yet another driver that will have to use their fast repair early on to stay in the race. Live pictures, we see the pass being made by James Walker on Gavin Cox, and oh man, that is a very odd incident there for the Udox car. Walling, yeah, it doesn't look like the front right had much damage, but regardless, not ideal indeed. All right, back to live pictures as we wait for Walling to complete his repairs and emerge back out onto the racetrack. Further battles going on in the GT field here, as now it's all about trying to find your way through a very narrow alley in the midfield, the infield of this circuit. It's James Walker has managed to find his way past both middle finger Mustangs. He's now right on the back of Robbie Bradbury. This is going to be really good. So this is our answer as to what happened to Walling. It was a hardware failure. Oh dear, the wheel just instantly locking all the way to the left. Not the first time we've seen that happen to someone. It's happened quite a bit over the last couple of years, but regardless, a brief loss of USB connection can completely destroy your race, as he found out the hard way. Check back in with Robert Northway, meanwhile. He's finding his way back up. Shane Bowen is in 7th place, battling with Hayden Kirk in the 371 here, and into the horseshoe they come. Got to be very smooth through that section in the LMP2s. Dean Mole, meanwhile, he's caught up to Jason Lottridge here, and well, it's interesting to see the run from Lottridge here so far. Slipstream down the start-finish stretch, as now we find our way through to the next lap. Is there going to be any attempt from Lottridge here to make a pass on the GTs? It's always difficult to find your way through when the GTs are right ahead of you coming into a heavy braking zone. You know, the GTPs and hypercars definitely have the capability to outbrake them, but depending on your closing speed and how far behind you are, it's always difficult to find your way through. So Lockridge, I think, wisely not deciding to go for the move. He was going to wait for a clearer opportunity, and now he'll find his way past Walker, teammate evidently, and find his way through, continue his chasing down here of Dean Mole in the Cadillac up ahead. And as this race goes on, there's going to be plenty of very crowded track. There's not going to be many opportunities for the GTPs to have a rest. They'll be looking at GTs pretty much everywhere around this racetrack. For now, though, not much of a change in position in all of our classes. Everyone's just settling into a rhythm now as we reach the 2 hours to go mark in this race. So keep an eye on the battles going on in every single class here. Battle for GTP. Zeke Kabani, who had his dramas on the first lap, has now got Ben Doughty and Bevan Moyes right behind him. And don't forget, Bevan was the car that was damaged thanks to Kabani's mistake on the first lap here. So the Brashies Cadillac will be a little bit wary approaching that Acura, but does have a little buffer in the form of Ben Doughty, who's up 3 positions on where he started and is looking to make it 4. We've got to keep an eye on lap times as well. Bevan Moyes clearly the fastest of these 3 cars. And, well, Dan, I think a move should be happening pretty soon if Moyes can keep this pace up.
Yeah, I'd say so. That's a fair point to make there. Yeah. Whilst fuel saving is a handy thing to do, I would suggest, but so no, if you've got pace over somebody else and you can use that to get to somebody else and save, or just get track position even at times, that certainly might be something that he'll be looking for in this opening phase of the race. As we go back from the GTP, so Lachlan Capel here in the GT3, now up to 9th in class, well, recovering to 9th in class, I should say. He's in this nice little train here, so he's got cars to work with. At the same time, though, they've got to be willing to work with him now that he's dropped back in amongst their midst. As Bradley Sinney has dropped to the pit lane in the number 614 machine. Now, Intel Mechanical Black Flag indeed has just pulled back out after a 21-second stop, and he's on the roll. See if I can find what's happened to him. Of course, being told we'll get the replay. It looks like it might be coming out of the Le Mans chicane. It is indeed. Oh, it's been a big incident for Sinney out of the chicane involving Capel.
Oh dear, a little bit of a twitch for Capel himself coming through the chicane just then. Oh man, you've got to be so careful in these high-speed corners around here, especially if you trim the downforce out. So Sinney, got unsettled over the curb and had to slow the car up to recover, and Capel had absolutely nowhere to go. So I think Capel might still be dealing with a bit of damage from that. It did look like a fair hit, and he might be suffering on straight-line speed. We do have the 21 Porsche right behind him here of Dylan Jordan, and there's a big pack just up ahead. Going to be providing a little bit of relief to Lachlan Capel with the slipstream, but regardless, Dylan Jordan seems to be the faster of the 2 right now.
Yeah, Lockie did make some gains on Gavin Cox in the middle finger racing Mustang in front of him, but it was only a couple of hundredths. And Dylan looks like he's willing to bide his time for now, maybe just scope things out and see what Lockie's pace is like here at this stage, because Gavin in front, a bit wide through the West Horseshoe here, going to allow the Corvette of Capel to range right up on the rear bumper. Has half a look into turn 6 here, but we'll prefer to set up for the run onto the oval as you would expect. And in fact, actually going to get around the outside of him here before the oval. No, ducks back in line to get the slipstream, although he's got speed apparently on the Mustang coming through NASCAR turn 1 race, and now already at the right rear as we come around NASCAR 2 and try to pinch that Mustang down, it seems. Like he's going to race it like an oval proper.
Yep, maybe a bit of side draft that he'll be getting from that Mustang, and pulls out of it, does Gavin, allows Lachlan by. This is still the period of the race here in the first stint that you want to be trying to think about the long game, right? You know, if someone is clearly faster than you and is looking to get by, you might as well let them go, because you're technically not racing them right now.
Yeah, that is very true. It's one of those things where it's just playing this game and knowing how to play the game of who you're racing at any given time. Obviously, when you're racing on track, you don't want to give up track position freely at times, but there are moments like this where you got to play the longer game, and you might get something back in return later on in the races. It appears our LMP2 leaders are starting to work their way through the GT traffic once again, so we are now going to see the drivers here have to sort things out. And amongst all that, we have ourselves Harold Stadler, Ray Partridge and Robert Northway together on the road, fighting over third in the LMP2 class.
Good recovery from Northway after his lap 1 dramas. He finds himself in 5th and potentially looking at a podium by mid-race if he can keep this pace up. Northway's last lap was a 1:38.7. Compare that to a 39.9 for Partridge and a 1 minute 40.1 for Stadler. Harold's been the one trying to pick his way through the GTs, and Partridge and Northway can respond to that as we have our overall race leader coming up on Northway. Sutton having to squeeze his way through there and commit to the outside. Stadler's going to give him a little bit of slipstream potentially on the NASCAR straight, and will find his way past them in due course by the time they get to the bus stop. Almost 3 wide on the way in. The GTs back out and the LMPs find their way through, and the hypercar of Sutton is enjoying what is now a 5-second lead over Ewan Baker. That first run through traffic really worked in Sutton's favour.
It definitely has appeared to do so, because on the last lap, isolating that last lap that Sutton has, well, the one before Sutton has just finished, the times were pretty equal at 1 minute 30.1 versus 1 minute 30.0, actually slightly in the favour of Baker. But we're going to go to another replay here with Ewan, and we're going to say here, watch out for some bad timing up behind Jason Martin in the Porsche, and that is the very worst car you could get caught behind, Reese, in the Le Mans chicane in a GTP or hypercar class machine, because that car, those GT3s just cannot maintain the same kind of speeds a hypercar can through such a fast-flowing set of corners.
Yeah, indeed. You trim out the downforce as much as you can usually around a track like this, but you still have a fair amount of downforce to work with through the high-speed corners, and we'll have a look at how busy the track is on the way onto the oval here. This is a ridiculous amount of cars that they're having to work their way through here. It's almost like the start of a race, seeing the dipping and diving through all of this. GT positions changing left, right, and center as Northway finds his way through and has to. He had to back out behind the McLaren there, and that could give Ray Partridge the position here. Stadler has skipped away. Partridge lost the position to Northway, but could gain it back. He's not quite where he needs to be to pressure him for the position into the chicane, and a little bit offline as well. He'll lose some momentum, and Northway will have some breathing room, at least until he gets up to the next GT group.
Yeah, the entire field is still very much pressed together in basically from turn 1 through to the Le Mans chicane, with only a couple of stragglers behind that. So despite the fact we've got 3 different classes and a pace spread of around 15 seconds per lap here at Daytona, and the spread between, say, the hypercars, the LMP2s and the GT3s is pretty even either side of the LMP2s. Yeah, they've all ended up together, as you said, just like it's a race start or the very first time through traffic for these kinds of cars. So drivers will be hoping that this filters out a little nicer in the back half of the race, you'd think.
Yeah, certainly would hope that's the case. In any case, up to the horseshoe, we'll see. Robert Northway having to work his way around the outside of a Mustang, and Ray Partridge will try and find his way through as well, as they have a GTP for company. The Acura will have to find a hole to punch its way through, hopefully not involving another car. Gently now out of the corner, and it's always difficult to try and determine the line coming out of that turn. I know I've had plenty of experience there, but you do need to be careful. You don't know exactly where the car you're passing is going to go, so maybe try and commit to the outside early if you're a GTP or an LMP2 trying to pass a GT3. So it's always heart and mouth coming through the bus stop, isn't it? Those curbs, while they are flat, they can certainly be some race killers there.
I mean, yeah, like at the same time also things like think the curbs actually, they're not too bad. It's actually the fact the curbs are so flat, I'd say, Reece, that they invite drivers to use them and abuse them. And to the point where you're going to get the off-tracks racking up, which, saying that, there is no incident limit or system in place. So it's going to be entirely into slowdown penalties and the like. As I'm just seeing a little bit behind what we've got here on speed. We've got GTPs, GT3s, LMP2s all stacked up together as Northway trying to clear the 755 of John Ebersol. And in behind Ebersol for GT3 battling, we've got 3 cars: Capel, Matt Stewart, Dylan Jordan says no, we should be looking for, it's Dan Stevens in there, yes it is. And then you've also got Shane Bowen, who's just finally arrived looking for a way past and just gotten through Scott Hazler in the GTP classes. Oh, these hypercars trying to swing around the outside with their extra grip of the GT cars. They want to use all the track to maintain their speed and go flat out through the dogleg.
Yeah, as you said at the top of the show, it's just flat out in a GT on a clear track. But when you've got cars trying to pass you, you will have to compromise in some way. This is looking very intense as we're on board again here with Matt Stewart. This Mercedes we saw trying to make some moves earlier, and now he's going to try and get up the inside of Dan Stevens, but it's not going to work there. Stevens just keeping his car in the right spot to prevent the Mercedes from really making a move. There's going to be a little bump draft from the two of them on the way into the chicane. Meanwhile, oh dear, we were looking at Bevan Moyes, but his teammate Julian Mookie has had a big issue coming onto the oval. Looks like a lockup and a run into the wall. That car is now missing its front end. That's going to be a pit stop there for Mookie. Is this an attempt at a pass? No, it wasn't. He just lost it. Oh, the front end was not gripping up on the way into the corner there.
Oh, that is unfortunate to say the least there for Mookie. And as a result, mechanical black flag has come his way, and that will see him to make a presentation to the pit lane to clear that one up. He does have the fast pair in hand still, thankfully, but how's that there? He can barely make it around the track. He's had to drop down well into the apron and to be safe. As Dan Stevens into the lane up on the jacks in his GT3 Mustang. Now, I believe this is actually a driver choosing to go off sequence here to get a pit stop done. I also want to suggest, if we can, we may need to do it very quickly, if we can pull up Sam Sutton versus Ewan Baker. If we don't get there in time, it's okay. Because on lap 17, if we can, the lap time difference between them is quite interesting. Again, that's just the give and the take of traffic. In Sam's case, it was a giver. How's that there? 17 particular. It's going to get replaced right now, unfortunately, but 2.3 seconds for Ewan Baker lost entirely, I believe, due to the traffic as they work their way through it. When traffic evens out, you can see 0.2 of a second in favour of Sutton as they are Dan Stevens rejoining right with your race leader now. And in fact, they go 0.04 of a second in clean air for both cars. So shows you that I have to say, I'd be very curious. I have to go look at the speeds that Ewan's running, because in practice he was one of our drivers on a high downforce setup to get raw lap time out of it, but it would appear struggled a little bit with the traffic. And then again, that just can be timing. It could just be the way the car runs, but I'm also told the Acura is one of the best accelerating cars in GTP or hypercar class. So I'll have to take a closer look next time they go through the field.
Indeed you will. Well, a little bit wide for the Kiwi Sim Racing Cadillac as he tried to find his way through there. Ben Doughty and Bevan Moyes have continued to dice away, haven't they? There's not much separating them. They've been involved with each other quite a bit. Scott Hazler not too far ahead of these guys, about 3 seconds ahead. So they want to try and find their way through this traffic pronto as they come up on Harold Stadler now in the LMP2. Stadler still running a very strong third. Remember, he was under threat from Northway and Partridge earlier, but that run through the traffic once again has worked out in the favour of the leading car of the pack.
In some respects, yeah, being the leader of any group in traffic means that well, you get to sort of dictate the way you work your way through it in many respects. As we're going to have a look at how one of our GTP cars, Ziki Kabani, got himself a slowdown penalty because the penalties around here were revised later on in the game, and that was all for those, and it is here. Yeah, it is indeed. That's a big old no-no there. Dropping below the yellow lines in NASCAR's 1, 2, 3, or 4 here is going to get you in trouble with iRacing, and to add insult to injury, Reece, it's just been black flagged by one of our stewards, admin team members from the major series. Not sure if that's for I think I heard something on the radio about it, possibly. As another black flag just coming, I believe this is incident decisions coming from lap 1. And indeed, actually, Robert Northway has been the next driver to have been issued a penalty.
Yep, no surprise there. I would have figured that re-entering onto the racetrack and immediately losing it into the leaders of the GT3 pack on lap 1 would definitely net you at least a look from race control. Robert Northway is going to have to drive through the pits sometime in the next few laps, so his recovery back up to fourth place in LMP2 will come to a brief end. Remember, Northway is a pretty fast car out there at the moment, so he should be able to fight his way back up regardless. That's a loss of about 20, maybe 30 seconds that he's not going to want.
And a lot of chat on the radio in game between our steward, administrator, and the drivers that have just been penalised. And I think I heard the last decision there was that it was for not holding brakes for the 13 of Zeke Kabani. And I think it had something to do potentially with the safety car for Robert Northway.
Okay. So not specifically for the incidents that we saw. So it would have been potentially for something else. We'll try and get that clarified for you all. But, yeah, we shall see. Regardless, Zeke Kabani has found his way into the pit lane and will be touring through as Matt Stewart tries to defend 6th place in GT3 from Dylan Jordan. And Jordan has been one of the cars that has shown some great turns of pace thus far. He was one of the drivers who ended up losing out, I think, in the lap 1 shenanigans. But he's kept the pace consistent. He's finding himself still beating Matt Stewart just by a little bit in terms of lap time, and they're both being dragged along by Lachlan Capel. New black flag for the 099. That's Mark Newton, and I think the decision there is quite obvious. Newton, of course, when Northway had his crash, Newton accelerated off the racetrack and ended up taking out a few other GT cars besides, and that's a clear case of not holding brakes, or a combination of not holding brakes and unsafe re-entry, I'd imagine. So here we go. That Middle Finger Racing Mustang will be the next car to tour through the pit lane.
It will indeed, although, yeah, noting also here, actually, seeing a live feed here from Robert Northway whilst we look at Dylan Jordan on the track. Northway not impressed with that one there. I'll go and listen to the comms messages again and see if I can actually track them down for us. But also noting that drivers can protest incidents that happen during the race via the Major Series Discord. And there is a protest for Mark Newton, but it is for the restart on lap 3. So I just want to see if I can match up what I'm finding here. So I'll see if I can find it first before I comment further on this one, Reese, as we keep an eye on the live feed here during the race.
All right, we'll leave that to you, Dan, as the battle for second in GT3 has heated up. Marcus Konietzka has lost second place, and James Walker now finds himself in that runner-up position in the Mercedes. Walker, I remember a little earlier, was marching his way up the field in the GTs, and now he finds himself more or less in the position that he started in. And looking at the lap times, he's not quite as quick as Dean McKay in the Porsche up ahead. As the overall race leader makes his way through, Sam Sutton's still enjoying what is now almost a 10-second lead over Ewan Baker. Nice and clean through the opening corners here. But can the McLaren stay in the slipstream of the Mercedes is the question. They need to keep an eye out for John Ebersol in the Corvette behind. Konietzka and Ebersol are two cars that have gained the most positions in this field. Konietzka's up 10 and Ebersol is up 11. Of course, you can throw Travis Walling, the LMP2, in that positions gained list as well, but other than that, they have made their way past just other people in their class. A very impressive run so far.
Yeah, 100%. There's Northway.
Ooh,
slow
yeah.
in the chicane. Got ourselves some issues there live here on pitches.
Yeah, looks like he was battling with Ray Partridge. And in fact, this might not have been for position. Partridge was trying to make his way through on him. Remember, Northway had just come out of the pits, and well, he was offline, lost it on the way into the bus stop. Fortunately, kept it out of the wall, but that's further time lost for our reigning series champion.
So yeah, I've just had a look back through the protest that was issued via the Discord on Mark Newton. There's a whole lot more, and it's all to do. It all concludes with the mechanical black flagging incident at the International Horseshoe that we did see after the restart race. But there's a bit of stuff that happens right after the green flag was called and the drivers are up to speed, because under the rules that are being run, of course, when the green flag is called, as when Sam Sutton up the very front in GTP restarted the race, well, it's all go as well for the guys further on back. And in GT3, they were a little stretched out through NASCAR 3 and 4 coming onto the front stretch. And from what I saw, just watching it back, it was a little odd. It was also involving Leon Duprez in the McLaren GT3, who's now retired from the race. And just, yeah, they went to the restart, and Newton got a better run. And then it looked like Duprez had some kind of issue because he suddenly slowed coming up to the tri-oval and pit entry. And Newton got into the back of him, I believe, unintentionally from what I saw. Then there's been an incident on the entry to turn 1. Newton was up the inside and Duprez was on the outside, contact, and Newton spun. And then the accusation is that Newton then may have intentionally driven into Duprez at the International Horseshoe that we saw on replay. I mean, look, hard to say from what I'm seeing. It's either a big mistake from Newton to miss his braking marker, or there was something more there as a result of what happened at turn 1 that we didn't see during the moment. As it looks like our first scheduled stoppers, and indeed, LMP2 is up busy here in the pit lane races. It looks like the majority of the field down to the lane.
Yeah, literally everyone in LMP2, aside from Robert Northway, who'd just taken his pit stop a couple of laps ago. So the LMP2s can make it about 40 minutes or so, or 43 minutes or so on a green flag stint. And they will be off the jacks, back on to the tyres. Garen Batten is going to move to the lead. As here's the replay of that restart you were talking about, Dan, on board with Mark Newton. Duprez in front of him, and yeah, Duprez does back out, doesn't he? Very interesting lift there. I don't know if he was quite sure what was going on there. Definitely Mark Newton would have been frustrated at this point, and then there was some further. Oh, yeah, okay, so Duprez actually spun Newton there as Mark tried to go up the inside, probably just a case of not being able to actually get a bit of a clear line out there as, oh dear, Ray Partridge spinning on the inside of turn 1 coming out of pit lane, and that's before you take the pit limiter off, so evidently the car wasn't quite settled there coming on the inside of the pit exit wall. That is a huge position loss there for Ray Partridge.
And a little slow to get off the pit limiter as well, I think, just trying to make sure he's okay. But LMP2's cold tyres, from the bit of driving I happen to do with this car track combination, very lethal. Notably under brakes, but also, I guess, you see it out of the pit lane as well. And whilst it's a low-speed corner, you have to throw a lot of steering lock into it to get that car keep it off the wall there. And as a result, I'm not surprised. It's potentially prone to speeding. Let's just double-check he didn't, grab the grass with the left-side tyres here on the MajorsSeries.com replay.
Okay, so it looks like an all right line through, but yeah, it just seems like on the way out of the corner, the way the suspension compressed probably didn't work to his favor there on the rear. It's always something that I'm afraid of when I'm driving at Daytona, because like at pit speed limit in the prototypes at least, you're sometimes able to take that flat out when you're on the pit limiter. You can just keep the throttle pinned and the car will take it. But yeah, the LMP2s, as you described, pretty lethal on cold tires, and maybe that just caught Ray Partridge out.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we won't know for sure at this stage, what the answer was, is back to the live pitches, back to the battling in GT3. We've got ourselves here, John Ebersola and Lachlan Capel, two of our Corvettes here, fighting over 4th in class. And they're a little adrift of your leads, about 10 seconds off the class, 11 seconds off the class lead now, as they make their way up towards turn number 6. And and also now having to negotiate LMP2, GTP negotiating their way through both of them here, and so the gap will stretch out between these two drivers as the sun comes down, the lights come on, and Sam Sutton, first of our GTPs at the front of the field, to the pit lane for service. Now, we can actually say this isn't entirely out of the plan for Sam. He's looking to actually try something a little different here in this race, but obviously not one to reveal too much, given that maybe others will be listening who can feed that to Ewan and other drivers at the front of the field.
Yes, indeed. It's this is going to be an interesting battle on strategy between Sutton and Baker, and things have calmed down a little bit now that everyone's spaced out and gotten into their rhythm. Ewan Baker can give himself a bit of a rest here and just focus on lap times, as Lachlan Capel here getting back into 4th place, passing his fellow Corvette of John Ebersol in GT3. That was a lovely move up the inside into the first turn, and he's managed to put some space between himself and Matt Stewart in the midst of all of that as well. Just ahead of them, Sam Sutton has come out of pit lane, as that's Harold Stadler who decides to say hello coming into the International Horseshoe. And that's going to be a little bit more time lost for Stewart from there. But we're still waiting on those first stops for the GT3s and the majority of our GTP and hypercar field. We have had 2 pit stops happen in our top class. Scott Hasler and Ben Doughty have made their way into the lane. They will come out in 10th and 11th, just behind Brandon Groch, who's... I think he pitted a couple of laps ago, I think. No, actually, he pitted earlier on to maybe get some damage repaired. Out of the pit lane they come, though, and Hasler immediately has Robert Northway for company in the LMP2.
Oh, a little wide, though, on the Cadillac there, and it's going to allow Ben Doughty to stay right with him here as they try and warm their cars back up to racing speed with the dogleg. They'll maintain the speed over the Northway right in front of them, and now they've got to figure out how to get around him without too much fuss. Look at the steering lock here. Doughty's going to try and put into it to really hook the car back and get a straight exit, as alternating pit strategy is now going to see Bevan Moyers promoted to the race lead. Don't forget, he did take that very early stop. Spin! Hazel loses the rear on cold tyres entering the oval. Thankfully, no one else involved. It's just going to be a lonely rejoin and recovery there, and yet better use the apron in this case here. Scott, slow down. It shouldn't hurt you too much if you can get back up on time.
Indeed, it did look like a bit of an aggressive exit there from Hasler, as the move is made for Mr. Matt Stewart, and John Ebersol has to give up another place there, back down to 6th now, but still up a fair amount. Ebersol was one of the drivers who was able to pick his way through the lap 1 dramas and put himself in a great position, but now he's getting caught up by the guys who were disadvantaged by that and are now recovering. So we're seeing a clear pace difference between a few of these drivers. The balance of performance in GT does look pretty good. I mean, we have a Porsche leading, we have a Mercedes in 2nd and a McLaren in 3rd, with a Corvette leading this pack here in the battle for 4th place. It's a lovely mix of cars.
Yep, it is a Porsche, McLaren, Mercedes exclusive top 9 in GT3, but I mean, look, end of the day, that's not so bad. We've got a couple of Mustangs, and also the mix and matching of drivers who are, they all haven't pitted yet, but things have been a little up and down for certain drivers here in this race today. So I think it's safe to say, for the most part, the balance is looking okay. As we'll watch these drivers work their way through the Le Mans chicane once more. And I'll be curious to see which of these cars looks good in a straight line here, as the fuel will be coming down towards empty. Watch out here for the LMP2s to get round first. Shane Bowen and Hayden Kirk, who are in lockstep as well. And is that Capel? It's Capel up ahead with a slowdown penalty, I think, up high.
Oh, yeah.
Drops down in front of Stewart just in time, as Stewart then goes high side as our P2s of Bowen and Kirk trying to get past here.
Boy. Yeah. This is interesting here. Capel loses the position, and he's not entirely safe from John Ebersol either. Those LMP2s are going to continue on as they are. And you saw how much they were scraping on the oval as well. Very interesting indeed.
Yep. Sound and visual cues from the LMP2s today, Reese. Yeah, all the way around the oval. Yeah, doesn't need much banking to make it look like those cars apparently If they had a board and they were scraping it, well, they're not going to have much left by the end of this one. Here is back at the very front of the field. Evan Moyes will lead a couple of laps here in this race, but don't forget he is on low fuel and an alternate strategy after pitting under that opening virtual safety car period, I should say. So he's not got many more laps left in this car. And in fact, there you go, drops right below the yellow line on cue, and we'll head to the lane D. 28 lap stint. We'll check that one off, and Sutton will retake the race lead here at the end of lap number 31.
Yeah, under very little threat, only 36.4 seconds for Sutton in the pit box there. Also, don't you hate it when you feel a gigantic sneeze coming on, you mute your mic, and then the sneeze just goes at the last minute? That's what just happened to me there. And then you unmute, and then you actually do need to sneeze, says Jay Kennedy. Well, don't worry, that's probably going to happen to me at some point. So if I go quiet out of nowhere, that will be your explanation. Shane Bowen and Hayden Kirk battle for 4th and 5th in LMP2. They've spaced out a little bit now, but Hayden Kirk is looking aggressive in the braking zones, and he's keeping within the slipstream of Shane Bowen. We're going to be seeing a replay here as well of Jason Lottridge in the Ferrari 499P. Looks like just coming out of the pits himself, and another victim of cold tyres, and that's a very inconvenient place to stop. Fortunately, he was able to drive straight off the circuit and get out of the way. I think that's what Gavin Barber was trying to do in the lap 1 turn 3 incident, but there were plenty of cars around him in that case. But for Lottridge, he can recover. Still, just goes to show how lethal the cold tyres are on the prototypes.
Yeah, needs to get them up into this. Oh, speaking of, well, not cold tyres, but Matt Stewart's gone around in the Western Horseshoe in the GT3 drivers.
Oh. So
that's going to see him drop out of that battle pack that was for 4th place in the class, and in behind his teammate Jake Jackson is where he'll recover. As another black flag has been issued, and it's to Mark Newton for a 2nd time in this race. As here's the replay of Stewart, so all happy behind Capel, and we saw Capel lose it at the rear. The Mercedes will copy Capel's loss of control, which was in the Corvette, though, mind you, just a little too quick, it would seem, trying to maintain entry speed, and found the limit of those rear tyres.
Yeah, it's a difficult corner, that. It's really difficult to pick the optimum line through there because the corner tightens up halfway through. It's almost a V shape with more conventional hairpin style turning on either side. So you need a car that is responsive on the front end, but you don't want the rear end too loose around here. Otherwise, you're going to be having issues like that. So we'll see if maybe a change of tyres is going to help out Mr. Walker there. Sorry, Matt Stewart, Mr. Stewart. My apologies. As Dylan Jordan has finally found his way past John Ebersol and is now up into 5th place in the Porsche. He's been looking consistently quick all race long, and he'll be rewarded with a top 5 briefly, as we're going to be seeing more GTs make their way into the pits. In fact, Matt Stewart has just come in there. Brandon Grotch and Steve Hassett completing stops there in the GTPs as well. Only an hour and 30 minutes left in this race. This first hour has flown by.
Yeah, what's the saying? Time flies when you're having fun. Well, time flies when we also let our mouths just go wandering around and trying to pick up every single thing that's happening around here. I'd also suggest as well as there's a little bit of more racing action for us here as Hayden Kirk ahead of Shane Bowen this time on the run to the Le Mans chicane, and will take that position away. 4th in the LMP2 class now is his, and you can see there. Oh, that was a little wide. Was that a little too wide for Kirk? Yes, it was. He's now got himself a slowdown. Going to have to clear that one, and Bowen will take the free slipstream up high though as they come around. I think he'll probably get the hint here in a second if he can catch up. Though he's not really, despite not having a penalty of his own just now.
There we go. Hayden having to really slow down now and let him go as the GTP comes through. I believe that's going to be either Julian Muki or his teammate Bevan Moyes finding his way through there. But the position has worked out in the favour of Shane Bowen for now. Always good to see Cobalt Racing out there and working their way through beautifully. Dwayne Burns, the 2nd of the Cobalt cars. It's great to see that that Dwayne and Shane still together after all these years, still driving with each other, and still making a good name for themselves, albeit with a very snazzy new livery.
Yep, nothing like a fresh coat of paint sometimes just to look slick there. Interesting history that you bring up, because unfortunately it's something, one of those things I just wasn't aware about, despite the fact that we've commentated for several years together. There's a history before 2020 that I'm just not really aware of when it comes to league racing and the drivers that made up that community. I very much fresh to the league racing side of things after COVID locked us all down. Whilst I can say I had racing experience, it was more often than not time trialing my way around certain games and tracks and just trying to be fast over a single lap, as that's a little bit too much from Kirk for a second lap in a row. Shane Bowen too actually picked up the slide, so they've both got to back off as they come around NASCAR 3 and 4, Reese, and it's now a game of who's going to back off at the right time to be in front by turn 1.
Looks like it's going to be Hayden Kirk. He'll cross the line ahead, and Bowen will be back up to speed by now as well. They both served the slowdown. They'll probably share a little chuckle between each other for that one, and they can play on, as it were. So currently 8 laps into this stint. The LMP2s were able to make 24 laps on that last stint. Of course, we have to take into account the virtual safety car. That would have extended the stint by maybe a lap or so. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that. But regardless, expect 24 to 25 laps to be the maximum amount that an LMP2 can go. Probably around 23 laps on this stint here, considering that there doesn't seem to be much danger of a virtual safety car, as pit lane is well and truly alive in the GT3s right now. We've got Capel, Konitska, Bradbury, Ebersol. We have Johnson, Cox, and Yatito as well in the pit lane. A big pack there. The only car in the GT class that hasn't pitted yet, there's 2 of them actually, 3, sorry. Dean McKay in the lead, Stuart Elder, who's assumed 5th place, and Robert DeLoach in the 235 has just come into the lane. So that leaves just the 2 I mentioned yet to come in, but surely Dean McKay is going to have to come in now.
Yeah, looking to stretch this one all the way to the hour remaining, hour stint length. Well, sorry, not going to make an hour remaining, because that would be a grand miracle. How's this here for a bit of the action through the Le Mans chicane? Gavin Cox here in the middle finger racing Mustang, giving us a demonstration of how the cars in GT3 handle the curve. As you said, nice and flat, these cars, so they can get through it without too much fuss. Is then closely followed through by David Johnson in the HTS Racing Porsche. As well, similarly pretty calm and composed there, although certainly loading up the left side tyres there through the middle of the Le Mans chicane, as it looks like indeed, yep, 32 laps will do for Dean McKay. To the pit lane he will come from the race lead in GT3.
And you see the difference in how the GTPs take it as well. I believe that's Ewan Baker there in the Acura. Doesn't take quite as much of that second curb as the GT3s did, but he was very aggressive on the way in. In the GTPs, you definitely want to try and gear up for a straight line exit, and you want to be aggressive over the curbs in the first part of the chicane to get that done. So Walker, Jordan, Mackay, Jackson, all in the GTs. Stuart Elder should follow them in very shortly as well. And that will make it the entire field, having taken at least 1 pit stop over the course of this race. We have 2 visits to the pits for Bevan Moyers, 6th in GTP. One of them was, of course, for damage. Zeke Kabani has visited the pits 3 times, and I believe only one of those times was for an actual stop. And in LMP2, we've had Partridge and Northway have to visit the pits twice. Northway, one of them was a penalty, and Matt Stewart has been in twice as well.
Yeah, been a couple of rough fortunes in this race, as eyes on Dan Stevens and Marcus Konitska here. They're now sitting 3rd and 4th in GT3 as they cycle through a couple of cars. They're running extra long in that sense, such as not quite James Walker. He's going to sit out in front of them there for the time being, but they get past, whereas Dylan Jordan, who's just coming out of the pit lane right now, and drop back a couple of spots in the process as they deal with these prototype cars coming through as well, and still manage your own race to the best of your ability here. But thankfully this time through the majority of the infield, that dogleg and Western Horseshoe, and back out to turn 6. Dan Stevens can keep eyes forward and hit his marks the way he wants.
Certainly can. Embroiled in the fight with Marcus Konietzka in the McLaren. Remember, though, that Stevens is 15 laps into his stint. He took that very early pit stop there, so he's reverse engineering the strategy compared to the rest of the GT3 field. Be interesting to see where he works out from here. At the very least, I think he's on for a top 5. A podium might be a little more out of his sights, but we'll have to wait and see.
I mean, the big thing is, he now owes the field a big refill, whereas the other drivers here will have one stop to go, and they can probably get to within about half an hour of the race ending. Therefore, be about that half tank, a bit less on that to be clear. So, I think for Dan Stevens, it's quite contingent on a virtual safety car coming out with around an hour to go. That his strategy will actually work out optimally compared to everyone else. And whether he can then, therefore, basically, it'll reset. It will probably give a chance to reset the strategy. In that case, not put him at too much of a disadvantage. He'll still lose time in the pits because everyone else will have shorter stops, but he won't be as disadvantaged as a green flag stop and the transit time on top of that difference in the pit box stationary.
We'll turn our attention back to Shane Bowen and Hayden Kirk fighting over 4th in LMP2, finding their way through the GT battle we were just focusing on. And this is difficult for Hayden Kirk. Has to back out through the dog leg and then try and find a way through on the inside of the McLaren here. Track widens out a bit there on the entry into the hairpin, so he's able to sneak up the inside, and that spaces out the battle between Dan Stevens and Marcus Konietzka somewhat. And then focus on the exit here. Shane Bowen compromised behind Stevens at the apex, and then Kirk will pick up the slipstream here as Sam Sutton makes another appearance. Now in the lead by 18 seconds, just about 17 on the timing that you can see. So things are working out very well for Sutton at the moment. Hayden Kirk tries to get a little extra slipstream off the GTPs, but it's not going to work out for him that time.
Well, yeah, that was a little bit of a fun situation, trying to pass Dan Stevens, the middle finger Mustang, and Sutton roaring up from behind in the race-leading Ferrari there. So that's just part of the fun of the games there, because all of them had their own agendas and had to share the space there. As have a quick look there, I think it was Bevan Moyes, I thought for a second, getting through turn one. Indeed it is, as he's clearing Harold Stadler in the LMP2. But back to this battle here between Bowen and Kirk. Looks like they can't be separated anytime shortly, despite the traffic, despite the slowdowns recently they've all been hit with. Here's another look at the Le Mans chicane. I'm going to say here, so you saw there Mark Newton, who made his way through. Compare that to Brandon Groch there in the Frog Leap Juiced Racing machine, and how much more they're cutting down on that entry there to really open up the run through. And as a result, note the grass and new debris refresh gets kicked up from cutting the entry to Le Mans chicane like that. As speaking of the Le Mans chicane, trouble for Gavin Cox on the exit of it in the 555 MFR Mustang. He's dropped back a bunch of spots, quite a lot of time, as he had to wait for a spot before he can safely rejoin.
Yeah, not ideal for Gavin. Also worth noting with the debris refresh, the amount of gravel that is tossed up on pit lane exit as well. Remember, we saw Ray Partridge spin earlier as we get a view of what happened to Cox here. Just lost it by himself in front of the GTP. Not ideal indeed, and that's a really tough spot to be stopped, especially considering you've got cars coming up on you at full speed. But yeah, we saw that spin for Partridge in the LMP2s when they came out of their stop. For a while, there has been a little patch of gravel that's been thrown up on that left-hand bend at the exit of pit lane. So that might be another fold in the works to what happened to Ray Partridge. He might have caught the end of that little patch of gravel.
Yeah, all those ifs, buts, and maybes with the way the track will evolve and change. Because pit lane, they're only running down it once every 40, 50, 60 minutes. Doesn't get cleaned up anywhere near as much, of course, as the racing surface. So that indeed will be something to keep an eye out for. As looking at this battle here, well, actually, let's say the interclass negotiations. So that time around, Cox goes up high and allows the Tech 1 prototype, which I believe is Julian Mookie, to get on by. As back with Bowen and Kirk, who refuse to be separated. Bowen still holding on as he has for the last couple of laps. Reese know Hayden Kirk's willing to push the limits through the Le Mans chicane. Well, both of them have done so now. Kirk maybe one time more. The question is, how much perhaps is he trying to save any? I'm going to go on board with him and just see how this drive goes. Also, because one of the interesting things with the cars here in the LMP2 category, revised to match 2024 technical specifications. Now, which notably means they've got a lower rev range in the first 5 gears. The sixth gear gets almost up to where they used to be, but it means, yeah, having to get used to once again how these cars shift, as that's a little wide through the chicane and couldn't clear. No slowdowns to be noted, is true, but for Hayden Kirk there, actually just, yeah, too much of a run in the wrong place to be able to make it stick through NASCAR 3 and 4, but it does line up a chance here with all the draft down towards T1 as Northway back to the pit lane off cycle for him. He's back out on track entering the International Horseshoe.
All right, well, Hayden Kirk and Shane Bowen having a little whoops-a-daisy, oh my goodness moment coming into the bus stop. Yeah, you're right. That's something that I did see, but I'd forgotten to bring up, is that change in the gear ratios for the LMP2s. You used to be able to select short, medium, and high stack for 4th, 5th, and 6th gears. Nowadays, the cars only have one fixed gear ratio, and you can't change it. So, you know, you're able to reach some pretty good speeds in 6th, but you have to make a couple of changes if you're coming back to this car after a while to the gears that you select through some corners. It does make a difference to acceleration, how the car drives out of certain corners as well.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I think the main one for me is Capel crisscrossing Dan Stevens at the Western Horseshoe to try and get that position away from him there for 3rd in the GT3 class, and he's just pulled that one off there.
Well done.
Also not losing a ton of time to Marcus Knitska and having to negotiate traffic, well, overtaking traffic and Brandon Groch there in GTP. So bold, but calculated, and appears to have checked that box very nicely.
Indeed he did. Lovely stuff. Yeah, this is some very interesting battles going on in our GT and GT3 and LMP2 classes. There's not much going on in GTP and Hypercar, has to be said, aside from the battle between Scott Hazler and Bevan Moyes for 6th place. Other than that, the only other battle on track outside of this one we're looking at is between Robert Deloach and Stuart Elder for 15th place in the GT3 category. So we're in that point of the race now where there's a little lull in the action as everyone's completed their first pit stops and they're just getting settled in to work the strategy to the finish line here. A couple more pit stops expected for the LMP2s and definitely another pit stop for the GT3s and the GTP and Hypercars.
It's been something on track. I'm just checking it here before I bring it up. Oh no, mistake in miscommunication between Bradley Sinney and Julian Mookie entering the oval at turn 6. Seen a mechanical black flag picked up for the McLaren of Sinney. And then right as I was talking about that, a solo issue for Gavin Cox at the same turn shortly afterwards. So loss of control for spin around for Cox. But for Sinney, that was an interesting one that I've just watched back on my replay, Reese. A little slow and was a little loose through turn 6. I actually had to check it up big time to not spin. But Julian Mookie trying to maintain his speed in the prototype. Right behind is the aerial shot. We'll show it off best here. Unfortunately, get the slip, the slide, the slow down for Sydney's tried to gather it up, and unfortunately it gets collected in the right rear corner too. And that has meatballed the number 614 machine. And I'm already seeing the fast repair previously used. So he's in the pits now. That's going to essentially be a lengthy stay if he wants to get back out there.
Yeah, I wouldn't put any blame on Mookie, though. He committed to the corner, and he wouldn't have had much time to react to Sydney's slide there. So, yeah, that's just another one of the pitfalls of multi-class racing. Sometimes you commit to a corner, and a slower class car makes a mistake in front of you. You're expecting them to take a certain line, and suddenly they don't. You really got to have your eyes on stalks. You've got to have your reaction times down pat, and sometimes it's just not able to happen. There goes Bevan Moyes, excellent exit out of the bus stop as Hazler had to slow up for a GT, one of the McLarens there, and that will be a position change there. Lovely stuff from Bevan Moyes, continuing to make a good recovery here. But, you know, I don't know if he'll be able to get much further than maybe 5th place. He does have Ben Doughty ahead of him by a few seconds, but next car's up, the real heavy hitters in the GTP category, and I don't know if Moyes will be able to better their pace all that much.
That's a fair point to make then. Yeah, because the way the field is spread somewhat. I mean, you've got Hins, Doughty, Moyes, and Hazler who are sort of somewhat together, although we're still talking a 15-second spread. To get to Luke Santos, who's running in a race of his own, 20 seconds ahead of Thomas Hins, 30 seconds though behind Ewan Baker. Yeah, it's going to be a little tough for him to say that. And then, yeah, Sutton Baker, relatively speaking, in another race of their own again. As you noted, there's about a 5-second offset on field taken at the first stop in favour of Baker in terms of having a longer stop. So, speaking of a bit of miscommunication there, Hazler wanted the racing line into the, down the backstretch to the long chicane, but Matt Stewart had already committed to letting his car run up to the wall there. So that was a moment of panic behind the steering wheel of the 658. Thankfully, no contact. We carry on.
We do indeed. On board here with the Frog Leap Juiced racing car. And you'll see the Mercedes here. Hazler's expecting him to... yeah, that is a clear miscommunication there. Sometimes the GT is going to stay low. Sometimes they'll take the racing line. Evidently, the GT thought that he had time to move to the top of the circuit, but Hazler was trying to commit to that high line pretty early on there. Meanwhile, our GT leader, Mackay, has experienced a slowdown penalty somewhere, and that's brought James Walker right into the fight for the lead of the class. And I mean, it looks like the last lap times were pretty consistent between the two of them. So obviously the slowdowns happened for Mackay on this lap.
Le Mans chicane.
Oh, I see.
Last time around.
Right. Okay, so he
I'm going to say definitely the end. He also may have picked it up at the start of it, though, as well.
So let's see here.
Second apex, I should say, as he turns bright.
All right.
Possibly
yeah.
Definitely here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's 100% a slowdown there, running all the way beyond the curb. And, well, fortunately for Mackay, he's been able to get back on the pace pretty quickly and able to keep Walker behind him, but still, he's not out of the woods just yet. Still have 70 minutes remaining in this race. And Walker, we've seen some incredible pace from him thus far.
That we have indeed. Unfortunately, can also now note that Bradley Sinney appears to have decided the day is done for him in the 614 GT3 McLaren, as his car, well, in the pits, apparently was fixed, but has chosen to withdraw from the server. As there's a look at the last lap around for Mackay and Walker. I have to just see there. So the sectors do add up. So yeah, Walker strong through the starter lap as Mackay was trying to bleed the slowdown into the infield, and then also did well in the infield as well. But it looks like Mackay good through the Le Mans chicane and NASCAR 3 and 4, roughly speaking. About actually, I should say, if I go sectors. We are looking at, using sector in the infield just before turn 6, then another sector marker approaching the Le Mans chicane. So that's how timing system breaks it down for us there on screen. So it's actually basically nearly the entire infield is covered by sector 1 there to get that time advantage. So for Walker, actually did good more than just the slowdown period, I'd say, for Mackay.
Well, it's a lovely clean run through the chicane this time for both cars, and you can see that Walker is starting to gain things just a little more here, but Mackay has some very good speed in the Porsche on the way out of the chicane, but then you see Walker just start to ease in on him. You see the Porsche getting just a little bit bigger. Walker is within slipstream range, and he's taking good advantage of it. Just got to hope that GTPs don't come up on them in the wrong places.
Yep. And that there,
Yep.
having to almost wait for the turning point at turn 1 is not going to be ideal for Mackay. But then you can see here for Walker, he's having to be very mindful of his positioning and placement through the S's to the International Horseshoe, as you've got yourself the Ferrari of Stephen Haas trying to get through. As another slowdown penalty, this time for lock cable, and that definitely is for cutting too much of the second apex of the Le Mans chicane, which I thought Mackay was close to, but that definitely there from Lock and Cable, unfortunately, will put him in a bit of hot water. He is, though, closing down on your GT3 leaders. Now inside of 8 seconds. When he was back in the packs behind, it was up beyond 11 seconds. So he's found some time when he's not making mistakes like that, mind you.
Indeed. This battle's going on nicely here. A three-way fight for 9th. Bradbury leading Jason Martin and Chris Yatito. And they have some company in the form of Harold Stadler, who's dragging, I believe that's Robert Northway behind him. Northway, of course, not fighting Stadler for position at the moment. He's just trying to survive to the end at this point. But Jason Martin will be looking there at the Mustang and seeing what lines he takes, if he can find any kind of advantage. And, oh, I've just seen another position gained, meanwhile, for Bevan Moyes as things get a little leery here coming onto the oval. Moyes up into 5th in GTPs, just past Ben Doughty.
Yep, and from what I caught of it right as it was being finished off, it was a big old lunge into turn 1, and Moyes got it just pulled up in time to be able to hang on to the spot through the S's to the International Horseshoe. So that's our battle in GTP. Has had a bit of action there, and well, yeah, eyes still here on Mackay versus Walker for your GT3 lead, and keeping tabs, as I said, on Cable. Can he make gains back on him as Garen Batten leading, well, had been leading in the LMP2 class after 21 laps, says that's enough for this stint for me. So is that short, or is that actually what we can expect from these cars on a fully green run? Because as you said, that safety car period at the start of the race saw the tanks out to 23, 24 laps. Might we be looking at a little bit more trim than we thought initially with those P2 cars?
Yeah, interesting. I think it might be short for Garen Batten because Burns and Stadler and Bowen as well. In fact, everyone except Batten is, it seems, able to go a bit longer on that as Ben Doughty chases Bevan Moyes to try and get the position back. Don't forget as well, Moyes pitted a bit later than Doughty did, so there's going to be a tyre advantage and a sort of less fuel advantage for Doughty, and a poor run for Moyes through the first couple of turns. He's now on the defensive, but Doughty sees the door open and finds his way back through.
Unfortunate there from Bevan Moyes, just pushing too hard. Opens the opportunity at 2, or offers the opportunity at turn 1 by going in that deep, and then commits to defending the spot at the International Horseshoe. And big lock up slide and mistake there for him, unfortunately. So that puts paid to the battle once again, back in favour of Doughty for the time being in GTP. It's hanging 2/3 of a second for Dean Mackay ahead of James Walker. He gets a bit of time through the corners, it seems, as here's this next lap around where they were both valid there. And Walker now picking up time on the run out of the infield towards the Le Mans chicane. It's pretty dead heat there from the Le Mans chicane to the finish line, and pretty close on the infield too. So is this pace management from Dean Mackay to hit a fuel number now or something and just know that, okay, I'm leading the class, guys don't want to be in front of me just yet, and I've only got one driver close enough to feel worried about at this stage in the race. Actually, an update from Lynn Kinchler, who's shadowing us here tonight, Reese, or this evening for me. Now it's very much afternoon for you. Yeah, expect no more than 23 laps for an LMP2 car. So see here how they go. So I see 22 laps completed for drivers like Harold Stadler. So I think they are now on their 23rd lap, if I remember to read my timing correctly on that point.
Yes, Dwayne Burns and Ray Partridge just completing 22 laps in their last stint, and they found their way out. Partridge still completing his pit stop, but Burns has gotten by and will remain in 4th for the time being. Stadler, Bowen and Kirk will continue on as they are as this battle continues to close up here for the lead of GT. And the slipstream is well and truly with James Walker now. But is he going to go for the lunge? Is he going to find a way through? Oh, he's going to back out here coming into turn one. He's just biding his time here. He knows, both of them know, that it's not far until the next pit stop for these guys. 29 laps is what we heard the MFR Mustangs were going to be getting over a stint. We expect it's about the same for the rest of the GT category. So they've still got a fair amount of laps to go on this stint, but I think it's a little bit of a ploy by James Walker to try and do some fuel saving himself.
Yeah, you think so. Small issue at the International Horseshoe for Ray Partridge. He's gone around in the grass and unfortunately done it all by himself. Cold tyres strikes once again for an LMP2. Here's the summary of that incident there. As Moyers and Doughty back together again, and more to the point, Moyers ahead of Doughty. When did that happen? Being told the slow middle up 49 for these drivers, so yeah. Doughty up high, around NASCAR 3 and 4, as they're also being lapped by the race leader. To boot as well, yeah, big old penalty, slow down clear there from Doughty up high. So they resume their scrapping. Still got Hayden Kirk, Shane Bowen, nose to tail on LMP2. Top two in GT3, as well as Marcus Kitson, Dylan Jordan, Jason Martin, and John Ebersol, all tied up together. So we've got, by the looks of that, I'd say that's about 5 or 6 battle packs to ponder with there. So keep you posted as we get now into the meat potatoes of things with the side-by-side split view live here on SimSpeed to keep an eye on as many as we can, which is to say 2.
Yes, the pit stops have been completed for the LMP2 class, and Dwayne Burns has fallen to the lead of the class as a position change here in GT. Dylan Jordan finding his way past Marcus Konitska. Marcus dropping back just a little bit here in the mid stages of the race as finally the second stop comes around for our overall leader Sam Sutton, and it was leading by a fair margin over Ewan Baker, deciding to go for a short stop early on to try and preserve that advantage. So we'll see if anything changes here with that next pit stop. But Shane Bowen and Hayden Kirk, their battle has worked out in the favour of Shane for the time being. It was a quicker stop by about half a second or so for Shane Bowen when they both came into the pits at the same time. Burns, Batten and Stadler, your top 3 in LMP2 as things stand. And this is going to be a long stop for Sam Sutton. Ewan Baker already back into the lead, but they have enough of a margin over Luke Santos that they only really need to worry about each other.
Yeah, Sutton's already on the roll out of pit exit. He'll get to the limited deactivation point here as Santos is even just rounding turn 1 proper. So comfortably in second place. There is some traffic to now sort out there for Sam and make sure he settles in. But now watch here, half a second for Dean Mackay ahead of James Walker. Mercedes comes into shot with the longer look down the start-finish stretch as Thomas Hinz, next driver to take to the pit lane, will slot in from 4th place. Now, last stop for him was, pardon me, because he's already come to the pits. I don't have that last stop information at hand. Unfortunately, I'm being told it was indeed 23 laps ago. I just wish I knew how long it was. Well, he's joined in the pit lane by Ben Doughty, just as Bevan Moyers goes a little hot into turn 1 by himself, I believe. So, yeah, again, so I think I have to say Bevan Moyers has taken inspiration from Ben Doughty going deep in a turn 1 a few times as Walker's got some confidence under brakes apparently there at the Western Horseshoe race. Does lose a little bit on the way out though in exchange.
Yeah, certainly does. Well, remember, Walker clearly has the pace to go for the lead, but he's electing to hang behind Dean Mackay for the time being. It's always good to have an extra opportunity to lift and coast, maybe shorten your final stop, or at the very least make sure that you can extend this stint to be able to overcut your rivals, so to speak, into the bus stop there. Yeah, we're seeing maybe a tiny bit of lift and coast for James Walker, as now back together again. Hayden Kirk and Shane Bowen. Hayden has taken the position over Shane, and it looks like maybe potentially a slowdown for the 673.
Not right this second, but that may have done it. Let's I'll have a replay of the path. Oh no, big mistake from Shane Bowen at the Le Mans chicane. Straight, had to basically overshoot it and bypass it completely. We'll bring it up here on the MajorSeries.com replay because watch out for Shane Bowen's car. Yeah, that's a little deep. Chooses not to go for the runoff and cutting through the tyre bundles. Takes avoiding action, but as a result, well, that's a hefty slowdown you have to pay in addition to the speed loss we've just endured. By the time we caught live feed of him being behind, he'd already cleared the penalty. But that'll paid there for him at the time as Dan Stevens to the lane for stop number 2 in his Mustang GT3. As we are inside an hour to go with a full tank, that will be him done to the finish.
Righto. So keep an eye on Dan Stevens. See what he can do to gain any more in GT, and keep an eye here as well on the battle for the lead, because Lachlan Capel is continuing to catch these guys. Capel has certainly had his fair share of issues in this race, but he's clearly faster than the top 2 right now.
Did pre-qualify fastest of all our international competitors in GT3, so he has the speed, and it's just one little error there that cost him a whole bunch of time. He's then waited as seen Brandon Groch off cycle with everyone who's coming into the pits, just being passed by Ben Doughty. Dan Stevens, yep, being passed as he hits out of the pit lane in GT3 as well. So it really is now, yeah, only a handful of cars out on track battling that's not affected by pit cycles. And really the big one is this here, the fight for the GT3 lead. 15 laps into the stint. I'll happily keep on going here. So approaching top speed of 280 kilometers an hour for both drivers, just over in Mackay's case. And that's a good 100 meters or so roll into turn 1 that time by. So Walker is now very much content to sit here. As you said, they've got time to burn for now. Virtual safety cars notwithstanding, but as we've seen, it's kind of gotten into an orderly state. Actually, if we could, perhaps get the track map up just to sort of show how things have, in a sense, calmed down, but more critically, spread out, unlike what we saw early on, Reece.
Yeah, so if you're a GT3, you don't have to worry about a whole gaggle of prototypes trying to find their way through on you. And if you're a prototype, then the spacing of the GT3s is a bit more even. So that works out well for everybody as things stand. All it takes is one mistake to throw that into disarray, though. So keep an eye out, especially as we are now truly in the night conditions, and the track temperature has been not dropping by all that much, but it has dropped. It was 21 Celsius when we started the race. It's now down to 20, and that'll obviously play havoc with the cold tyres out of pit lane, particularly in the case of the LMP2s.
Yes, warm-ish weather, sun in the sky, or cool weather here and under the lights. LMP2s are vulnerable to needing a bit of extra time on the warm-up to be at optimal performance, it seems. But there you go, temperature graph of the race for the last hour. Yeah, that air temp has shifted a tiny bit. Track temp apparently has been rock solid at 19 Celsius, so there you go. It's not... This probably hasn't felt like it's changed all that much under the driver's feet, as it were. The best estimation, that is. But as you said, yeah, now having to race under the lights, and as a result, make sure you know your way around this place when the lighting doesn't necessarily get every part of this track illuminated clearly for you.
Problem for Stephen Hassett. I didn't see any clear issue for him, but he pulled into the pits and has not come out. In fact, he's disconnected from the server. So we lost the 687 as Brandon Groch finds his way past Ben Doughty. And that is the change for the top 10 in GTP, but it's going to be taken right back by Ben. Very aggressive under brakes, and keeps the position for now from Brandon, who, has to be said, has quite a bit of pace in that Cadillac. Remember, he qualified up in the 7th spot, so he is out of position. Had to suffer a spin early on while the sun was still up. So he's got some fighting to do, And Ben Doughty is going to be a worthy opponent, it seems.
Yes, now do note, though, for Brandon Grotch, he's 23 laps into his current stint. He's going to go longer than anyone else if he takes us out as far as the car can go. Whereas for Ben Doughty, he has come into the pits as of 3.5 laps ago to put fresh fuel and tyres in his Kiwi Sim Racing Cadillacs. So that will mean there's an imbalance there, weight, tyre life and temperatures and such. So that battle will inevitably end as well. And it's obviously the main one to keep on eyes as your race leader comes into the lane to take his second out of what we believe to be 3 stops. And well, actually, based on the time remaining, will only be 3 stops needed for the GTP car. So Sam Sutton will re-inherit the race lead as Baker sits stationary in the lane. See here, 35.9 seconds for Sutton, which is a short stop relative to what the car could have taken on board, which will mean he'll have to pay that back at the end of the race, but that also means that's more time stationary, means you can put tyres on without any issues towards the end rather than waiting on them per se. For Baker, he's going to take it all the way to the near 42-second stationary time in the pits. As back to the GT3 lead and back to the ever-enclosing Lachlan Capel, who's now very much in his rhythm, it seems, coming to about 4.2 seconds off the back of, pardon me, I did say D. Mackay. So bottom says one thing, Tower says another. Either way, he's closing down on them a good handful of tenths per second per lap.
Yeah, certainly. Very intriguing fight going on for the GT3 lead as you can see Sutton's already coming up to the Le Mans chicane there as Ewan Baker has just negotiated the Western Horseshoe. So Evolution Racing Team, Orbit Drop Bear trading the on-track spot there. Of course, completely different races taking place between these cars. Meanwhile, something seems to have happened here. Dwayne Burns and Garen Batten have come very close together. Dwayne Burns was a fair way ahead of Garen Batten when the pit stop cycle was completed. I think there might have been some kind of issue for the 620. And Batten is about to go for the lead of LMP2 here, coming into turn 1, up the inside, stable under brakes, parks it on the apex, and it is done.
Yeah, nothing obvious flag. We'll just see if we can see something from Dwayne Burns. Back on lap 50, moment on lap 51. I'm just going to quickly, was this the moment where he had to run it? I'm seeing potentially heading up towards the one chicane and just confirm this.
Burns lost like 6 tenths on that previous lap, so...
Yeah, we're looking, where are we looking for a lap that's out of the ordinary? The most out of the ordinary is, lap 51 to the 38.3. Now, do note, Burns has gone for the short fill to get clear of Hayden Kirk and Harold Stadler and get up. Actually, pardon me, sorry, no, my apologies. Just 10 seconds shorter than everyone else, which gets him in clean air, which was the race lead. Maybe it is just pure pace. I mean, in saying that though, on fastest laps and typically last laps, Batten's not much quicker than Burns, but here's the situation we have ourselves in.
Yeah. Remember, Batten was the shortest of all the LMP2s on that previous stint, so he's evidently geared up for a long run here and potentially using that to maybe drive a bit more aggressively, a bit more fuel that he can use. He knows that he's definitely in contention for the win. But himself versus Dwayne Burns, we saw the gaps down there. Yeah, just looks like a consistent time loss by Dwayne Burns over the last few laps.
Well, that'll do it then. It's not one big mystery, it's just a whole bunch of smaller moments leading up to the grand total. As looking back in at the GT3 drivers, and this potential, well, has been a fight for the lead, it's just been between 2 cars mostly, but Capel continues to encroach on the lead on that last lap there, pulling in over 3/10 of a second on D. Mackay. And if he keeps this up at this rate, he will be there at the end of the stint, and therefore be able to come in almost with them. Note, though, he came in a lap earlier in the first part of the race. Will he therefore come in 2 laps earlier in this stint, which might put him in a bit of no man's land initially on the outlap?
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be able to make up some of that time at least. Remember, he is the fastest of our GT3s on pace, has been since pre-qualifying. Evan Moyes, meanwhile, completing his 3rd visit to pit lane in the GTP, and that is a 41-second stop. So he's likely fueled up all the way to the end there. 48 minutes remaining. I think that's around about what we can expect the GTPs to cover on a full tank. So I wouldn't expect Evan Moyes to come back into the pit lane anytime soon.
Might need to stretch that a little bit in terms of fuel saving, because to me 48 minutes on a tank of fuel might be a little marginal in these GTP class cars. I almost want to get to the 45-minute or so mark to be sure. But he's the one behind the wheel. He's got a fuel number that he'll be looking to go after, and time will tell. So one more stop expected for the majority of the GTPs. And looking here at the last couple of laps for Garen Batten versus Dwayne Burns, fairly consistent from Batten. Burns consistent in 54, 55, but losing time at the end of the day. And then a big loss of time through the 3rd and final sector on that last lap to hand off the lead once again to the 61 machine.
Mistake through the Le Mans chicane, I would say. That's really the only place that affects the Sector 3 time. So, yeah, Dwayne led for some time, but seems like Garen Batten is the one to beat in LMP2 right now. Can he hold on? Does he have everything he needs to storm to victory here in the opening round of the season? Turns out, apparently, it wasn't a mistake for Dwayne Burns. It looks like traffic. So that is... Actually, that's the GT3 leader, isn't it, that he's come up on there? Just really bad timing for Dwayne. Batten has a clear track ahead of him. He can accelerate right out. Burns had to back out through one of the fastest corners on the track.
Well, he said it was the most painful for a GTP class car to catch a GT3 through there. LMP2's not all that far behind either. So, yep, that'll do it for Dwayne Burns. Nothing he could have done in that situation, or at least nothing sensible that he could have done. I guess I could rephrase, because technically speaking he could have done something, and then I would have had to give him a bit of a roasting had I seen it on the replay. So that's all that was. Carry on and continue watching the racing action as Batten looks to press home his advantage. Moment for Dylan Jordan down at turn 1. The car's just gone around momentarily, it seems, starting to rejoin, and just confirming that unfortunately for Dylan, he's done it all by himself. So another driver falling afoul of the limits of the rear tyres on braking into these turns here at Daytona.
Well, looking at the laps remaining for GTP, my timing is telling me 30 laps left for our top class, and that means that basically everybody in GTP is going to have to come in one more time as on board here with the Porsche. Oh, dearie me. Is that...
that's Jordan.
Is that that's Dylan Jordan, yeah. That's spun around there. The braking zone into turn 1 is one of my least favorite parts of this circuit when I'm racing around here. There's basically no right way to do it, and you're having to deal with coming off the oval, a little bit of instability in the car, and then you've got the tightening in the middle nature of the first turn here. It's always difficult to pick your line, and if you don't get the braking point just right, then that rear end is going to swing around. Well, keep an eye on Hayden Kirk and Shane Bowen. Still inseparable.
Oh, big trouble at turn 1. Dean Mackay around.
Oh no, that's the GT3 leader with some big dramas. The 619 in the runoff area, and it looks like he lost it by himself in much the same manner that Dylan Jordan did, and he's gained some damage from that as well, potentially.
Yeah, there's definitely damage at the front of the car because other cars have collected him. So, as you see here, indeed, solo incident.
Capel
Yeah.
collected him.
Mackay dodges, backs it up, and then forward as well, and Capel sits middle of the road trying to pick a way past. There was no way past there at the end of that one there. It's mechanical black for Mackay. Miraculously, Capel's car apparently has survived needing mechanical black, and he still has a fast repair in hand. Sure, you've got to abandon the stint now a couple of laps early, fix the car. And as Mackay is in full limp home mode in the 619 machine.
Oh no, how it can all go wrong in an instant. And man, poor Dean Mackay, he doesn't have anyone to blame for that but himself. He just unfortunately lost the rear end on the way into turn 1. The wheel finally breaks free, and he is now three-wheeling it on the way into pit lane. Fortunately for him, it is only left-hand turns from here, apart from actually... Is that NASCAR 4 he's just come through? No, he has to try and negotiate the bus stop here. Oh man, this is going to be tough, really tough. Watch him try to turn and turn and turn, and it's just not wanting to do it. Oh no. You got to feel for him after putting on such a stellar drive up to that point. And Lachlan Capel will pull into the pits and get his fast repair done. New bumper on the Evolution Racing Team Corvette. Mackay, I think, should still have his fast repair in hand as well, but yeah, this will change the face of the battle for the lead here. James Walker has just been handed an advantage here.
Sure has indeed. I mean, just watching back the replay on board with Capel, short of the fact that the spotter might have had time to throw a warning in his way, the incident happens just far enough ahead of him and just far enough past the start of the solid wall on pit exit that visually it's completely sight unseen until he rounds the corner.
Yeah, that's the nature of Daytona, isn't it? That this turn 1 here, you'll see it on board with Capel. See that the wall begins there. The incident happens just past it, and he doesn't see Mackay until the very last moment. Yeah, you're right. The spotter would have said car stopped ahead, go left or go right or whatever the command would have been, but Mackay was splayed across effectively the entire circuit. It would have been very hard for Capel to avoid that.
There we go, Julian Mookie, another major. Julian's right in behind Capel here, so he's going to be the first car that can just dodge. He's just far enough back. He's able to hold enough steering in it and brake just enough that his car pulls up to be able to get up the inside and clear. I think it's also the biggest thing. The GT3 car is limited on grip, even relative to the prototypes there. And so for Capel, he's still close to racing speed at the time. So yeah, all has gone wrong for him. I mean, saying that we're inside the window to make it home, it just means he's had to abort the stint early to fix the car and get back out there. And he's off sequence with everyone else around him. Same for Mackay. Cars are fixed. They can make it home on fuel. They're just now buried further down the pack, and they're going to be needing a little bit more help to make it home. They'll have fresh tyres in all of this too, I guess, so there is that little benefit they'll have gained.
Yeah, indeed. And a GT3 stint runs about an hour. They'll have a bit less fuel in there as well. So that was such a close call for Julian Mookie. Well done on the reaction times there. So Dean Mackay will continue on as, see Shane Bowen and Hayden Kirk. Actually, it looks like maybe trading places there. Shane Bowen, I think, was pushed along a little bit by the KSR Cadillac there.
Yes, I was going to say, keep in mind, we have ourselves the KSR GTP machine of Doughty making his way through. But thankfully, that's sorted that one out there quickly enough, as here's a replay look, and it's Kirk running wide at the International Horseshoe. Shane Bowen says, I need no further invitation, thank you very much. And Doughty will follow through as well with the speed advantage of his bigger, meaner Cadillac machine. Well, it's no great loss for Hayden Kirk. He's still right on the back of Shane Bowen as they pick their way through the GT3s here. Slipstream, and man, you can see just how low the LMP2s are running. They are grinding the bottom of the car all the way across the oval there as
Looks like there might have been Jason Martin in the Porsche letting the Merc go there. I believe that might be Walker as Kirk gets up the inside of turn 1, but he might be a bit too deep, loses it on the way through and sliding on the marbles. Shane Bowen back through again into 4th place. These guys have been glued together for basically this entire race. They've been fighting tooth and nail the whole way through. Oh, and a problem for Gavin Barber as well. It looks like the number 25 has escaped back to the pits. Not sure what's going on for that MFR Mustang, but it can't have been good.
Western Horseshoe. Oh, another GT3, a little error. Oh, dear.
Oh,
yep,
that's
Harold Stadler in the 622 machine just arrives on the scene as Barber's again, another GT3 car that gets loose in the rear at the Western Horseshoe, under brakes, and Barber's just attempted to gather the car when he's come to a near complete stop as Stadler went to go to the inside of him because that's where the track was clear as Barber was running in deep. And unfortunately for Barber, it's broken the right rear corner of his Mustang and immediately fired him into the fence, so he couldn't even drive it back from there, and that's why he's towed to get that car fixed up. For Stadler, he's carried on for the time being. He needs to go a little further in this race to get to the window where he can comfortably pit, fix the car, and make it home on the fuel he'll need to add.
Yeah, Sam Sutton's view of that would have been quite interesting. He picked his way through that. Well, regardless, James Walker in the lead of GT3, and by some margin too. Got a massive gap over Marcus Konietzka. This is Sam Sutton's view, in fact, as he makes his way through in the Ferrari and just whoop and whoop. Okay, I'll commit to the inside to avoid both of those cars.
Okay, just hearing some more chatter between drivers on the radio. Notably, though, Dean Mackay and Lachlan Cable both reporting the incident at turn 1, which is a bit interesting because at the end of the day, like, Dean did start moving a fraction, was backward or forward. I can't quite recall which right this second, unfortunately. So there was a little bit of movement from Dean's car in the moment. I'll actually have a look at it again in a second. So he initially went backwards, and I actually opened up a bit of the inside line, and then Cable came through and hit him. So not quite sure what's going to be the goal of that decision. If anything, Mackay was moving the right way to clear the path for Cable, otherwise he would have full-on smashed Mackay in the door. As, turn 6 strikes again. This time it's Robbie Bradbury who's gone around in the 35 Mustang. Thankfully, no one else appears to be involved, Reese, and yep, solo car moment once again, carries on.
Yeah, gets back on track safely. Just in time for the GTP of, I believe that's Kabani that's found his way past there. Aerial shot, we'll see how it happened, and it was on entry this time. And turn 6 is, okay, couple of heart and mouth moments there for the prototypes chasing. It's very easy to spin on the way into turn 6, I've found. You know, I've done a couple of Daytona 24s in my time, and every time the entry to turn 6 has been one of those places where I've really had to be careful on the way into the turn. Otherwise, it becomes so easy to spin. It's such a short and sharp corner, and you have to get on the power so quickly for the run onto the oval. Oh, dear. Burns just sent a GT off there, coming through the dog leg. I think it might have been, yeah, Dylan Jordan. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, Julian Mookie. We're going to focus on first, coming into the Western Horseshoe. Just way too fast, and massive smash into the wall. That has unfortunately taken him out there. And, yeah, for Dwayne Burns, finding his way through on Dylan Jordan. Jordan had a massive smash as a result of that. We did see Jordan going off into the grass, but he ended up sliding back across the track and making heavy contact with the Armco barrier. So there is a bit of damage on that Kiwi Sim Racing Porsche at the moment.
So we'll see if, well, he's called it in. Let's have a look at it here. Another chopper cam to piece one together. So come off the National Horseshoe single file, as you'd expect. Yep, Jordan moves across to take the natural line to into the corner. Inside's clear, inside's there. I would have to say, I don't think Wayne Burns has done a whole lot wrong there from that particular angle.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very narrow section of the circuit. It's almost comically narrow compared to the rest of the circuit. So it's very easy to make contact through there. With Burns coming through like he did, yeah, you would expect him to track out a little bit. Maybe Jordan was trying to avoid going off the circuit himself on the outside through the corner, and so he was committing a bit harder. But the two of them just came together on the middle of the racetrack, and Dylan Jordan ended up suffering for it.
Yeah, it really did feel like a little more than that, unfortunately, there for him. And yeah, speaking of unfortunate, Julian Mookie's incident we did just see there on the replay down the Western Horseshoe. That happened moments where Robbie Bradbury spun at turn 6. We had Mookie unfortunately lock up, run into the fence, and mechanically black flag his car, and he had no fast repair on hand to fix that one. Then you had Bradbury spinning at turn 6, and I think then, yeah, half a lap later, unfortunately, we've had Dwayne Burns and Dylan Jordan get together at the kink there, turn 5. So a little bit of a high drama on the infield away from the banks of Daytona this time, it seems, in this phase of the race. But as we come to the final half an hour, there you go. James Walker, first of our leading drivers to have done the long stint here in the middle of the race, coming in with 32 minutes remaining, so he can slap us a fresh set of tyres on that one there to be a short, sharp sprint to the finish. Here is the driver now in second place after everything that's unfolded between Dean Mackay and Lachlan Capel. Jake Jackson, I would say, not a driver I was expecting to see based on the fact that he's been quietly chipping away in the midfield. But he's out of fuel, so the lane he comes, and there you go, Walker's already on the roll. 26 seconds for him is enough to make it home from here. Capel, remember, is filled, but, oh yeah, lost time, having to do a earlier, longer service. How much further behind Walker will he be? Walker's just about to hit the pit limiter disengagement, so it's going to be about 7 or 8 seconds, I'd say, favouring James Walker here. Capel's got a lot of work to do if he wants a chance in this one again. Actually, no, I'm going to say 5 seconds there.
Yeah, I think Capel still has a chance here. With the pace that he was able to carry before the incident, I mean, he got the fast repair done. His car's still effectively fresh, and Capel's completed 6 laps here with, we're expecting less than 20 laps to go for our GT3 leaders. So Capel is good to the end of the race on fuel. At least you would hope that he is. Definitely, if he got it fueled up during the fast repair, he wouldn't have to worry about pitting again. So he can just focus on pace and focus on catching Walker here.
Yep. Only thing, of course, is he doesn't have a fast repair in hand. But then again, according to my time in scoring, neither does James Walker and neither does Matt Stewart, the next car in the train, who has pitted and is clear to make it home. First car that is got a fast repair in case something goes sideways is Marcus Knitsko. That's talking GT3 only. There's quite a few of in fact, our top 6 in hypercar have fast repairs in hand, and in fact, all 6 of our LMP2s that are on the lead lap relative to each other have a fast repair. So GT3, the fast repairs are a little more scarce than they are in the prototype classes, at least for those running at the pointy end of things.
Yeah, I don't think that's much of a surprise because remember the GT3s had to deal with the massive crash at turn 3 on lap 1 of this race, so there would have been a few fast repairs being used out of that one. So yeah, you're seeing on the ticker, on the timing tower, who has used their fast repair and who has not. In fact, our top 3 in GTP have not used it. Top 3 in LMP2 have not used their fast repairs either. And remember, the LMP2s still have a pit stop to go.
Yeah, they do. And in fact, don't forget our GTPs are all going to look to make one more stop as well in this race. So a whole lot more shuffling and drivers coming out at points on the track relative to each other, all to come in this situation as well. And looking at things, Capel having had those couple of laps to warm up and get his car up to speed again. He is now inside or hovering around 4 seconds off of Walker's bumper, and that I believe is about half a second to a second better than what it was when when Walker was coming out of the pit lane. So eyes will need to be on the GT3 lead amongst other things here in this race as we get to the conclusion of our Daytona 2.4 action here in the International Region of the Majors Series for 2025.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting opening round so far as, well, right on cue. Here's the next round of pit stops for the LMP2s. Garen Batten going shorter on the previous stint to this. He's gone the full 23 laps this time around, and he's got Harold Stadler behind him ready to take advantage. Dwayne Burns pitted 4 laps ago, I think shortly after his contact with Dylan Jordan. Stadler, remember, ran into the back of Gavin Barber when Barber had his incident. So Stadler is carrying some damage at the moment, but that's what I was working towards when I pointed out the fast repairs for the LMP2. Stadler, when he comes into the pits, will be able to refresh his car and get going again.
And saying that, his pace this end of the stint has not been overly negative or negatively affected, it would appear. Now, there may be some pace there that has been lost for Stadler, and that's what you would expect because he did make contact front to rear with another car. He just may have gotten the slightly better end of the treatment as it stood in that situation. So we'll have to see if he flips the switch and does. I mean, you'd think at this point, just take the fast repair because if something goes wrong at this end of the race, you can fix the car, get the fast repair if you saved it, sure, but then you're still having to get back to the pits and limp it home from there. But not currently looking to limp home at any point. Jake Jackson, Dylan Jordan, both somewhat freshly out of the pits. No fast repairs left for either of them. And they're looking to scrap over this 6th place on the road. And if they can sort out their differences, they're only 3.5, dropping back towards 4 seconds behind Dean Mackay here. Maybe they could try and work towards the back bumper of Mackay whilst he's got no friends here on the track around him at this stage.
So 26.5 minutes remain, and well, you can see them both in the same frame depending on the shot. James Walker versus Lachlan Capel. 3/10 taken out of the lead by Lachlan on the previous lap, and he'll just about cross the line here and take almost another 3/10 out of James Walker. So with 16 laps to go in the GT3 class,
He'll get there with about
3
or 4 to go.
Yeah, he definitely will. Question is, will he be able to actually make the passes? Oh dear, that's one of the Tech 1 cars. Yep, Julian Mookie, I think, having just come out of the pits potentially. Having a problem there, and this'll... Oh, he's going to get it in the wall again. Oh no, Julian Mookie has had an absolutely torrid last few laps, hasn't he? Easy does it there for Jake Jackson in his battle with Dylan Jordan, having one of the Cobalt cars find his way through. Oh man, the drama keeps going. There's always some kind of ridiculous moment to turn to, it seems, in this last half of the race.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what's happened there with Mookie slowing down, and then all of a sudden, I don't know if he felt, because Capel was on max attack, he didn't want to lose any time to Walker up ahead. And I just think, the feeling, the possibility of Mookie just getting distracted by Capel pushing all the way towards his back bumper. And yeah, just lost sight of where he needed to pull the car up on cold tyres. And as we heard from our producer Kenny in our ear, he spent 8 minutes clearing a mechanical black flag, and he now has another one that he has to worry about. So being told to slow down for Capel, and yeah, that certainly looks the part, Reese. And I'll leave it to you. Did you hear the announcement just over the in-game radio from our steward observing the race?
I did not. I just wanted to point out that on the entry into the bus stop, Lachlan Capel also had contact from Dean Moll, so that's what induced the slowdown for him.
Okay, very interesting there indeed. As Sam Sutton, after a shorter stop last time around, will do a 24-lap stint, and with 24 minutes to go, we'll throw a fresh set of tyres on his number 680 Ferrari. The message from race control is, with less than 25 minutes left in the race, we are staying green to the end, regardless of what happens here tonight, Reece. So the period for safety cars is over, and this is now going to be a sprint to the finish. No chance to get things compressed, as in fact, you've also had Harold Stadler from the other Auburn Dropback car in the race come in. So, so Cable goes, dodges out of the way of Moll.
Tried to, at least.
But then still turns in because he wants an early apex, and as a result, puts himself out of position for the second corner. Yep, and he's going to hit him. Yep, there. And is he wide there? Yeah, carries a bit of speed. Could have been the second, could have been the fourth apex, could have been a combination of both.
Yeah, I reckon more on the second than the fourth. But Sam Sutton, having completed his final pit stop, now re-emerges in second, right in the middle of a big pack of cars. Ewan Baker still has yet to take his final pit stop, but he won't be too far away from it, and it'll be a nice short stop for Baker. Will it be enough to overcome Sutton? Because Sam has dominated this race pretty much from the very start. Baker pressured him in the opening stint, but ever since Sutton tried the spanner in the works short stop, or short stint rather, in the very first stint of the race, he hasn't seemed like he can be beaten. So Baker will be hoping that there's something that he's got up his sleeve here to try and fight back. Of course, you can never forget that there's always something that can happen to the race leader in a multi-class race like this. But Ewan Baker's going to continue on for another lap here at least. Should expect maybe another 2 or so laps out of him at the most before he commits to his final stop to the end. Final stop completed also for Brandon Groch, who's currently the last running of our GTPs, with Julian Mookie having spent a long time in pit lane already, and don't know if he's going to come back out. Meanwhile, Bevan Moyes and Zeke Cavani, 6th and 7th in the GTP class, and Zeke is looking rather quick. Was able to take out nearly 0.8 of a second on Bevan Moyes on the last lap, and they've got the overall race, the effective overall race leader, Sam Sutton, right behind them. So this could result in a bit of shuffling between them. Who lets Sutton go first?
Yeah, well, the thing is, I guess, they're in the middle of their own race for position. I guess technically Zeke being the first car there in front of, the first car that Sutton will lap. Although, is this going to be both of them holding it up high to open? No, they're going to pass GT3s on the inside. I've just looked at my own screen because, and they've got Harold Stadler in the LMP2. Whoa. And Bevan just checked up big time there. So is this Bevan going to try and release? No, he's only... and then Zeke almost fighting with Sutton there, as Sutton's trying to get through these guys. Oh, man, that nearly got... Oh, God. Trying to get hairy.
Quite hairy indeed. Well, Sutton would have lost maybe a second or so there to Ewan Baker in the midst of all of that. Baker has continued on for yet another lap, 129.8 for him, and this is one of Sutton's first laps out of the pits on his final stint. It is ultimately... actually, that lap didn't count for Sutton. There is no time recorded for it, so... yeah, just consequences of having to take avoiding action, I guess.
Slow down in the bus stop, possibility cleared after the start-finish line. Yeah. As watching here now, there's some clear track, and thanks to that, it's Moyes having pitted to, that clears up the road. 17 seconds between Baker and Sutton. The thing is, for me, is that kind of time difference wouldn't be enough for Baker to get out even with a short fill on fuel. He can go, we believe, another 7 or actually even 7 laps or so. That's kind of the thing. He's actually got that much fuel in the car, Reece. But yeah, going that far into the race, it's a guaranteed fuel only stop for for Baker, even at this point, it probably is a fuel-only stop for him. So yes, it'll be short, but I think at 18 seconds now, as it is, probably won't be. It shouldn't be enough of a margin for Baker to be able to challenge on pit exit. It would have to be some traffic factors or something after the stop that shakes things up for us, I'd say.
Yeah, at best, Baker would come out just behind Sutton. And that's a very slim possibility as well. So still very much in the hands of the number 680 Ferrari 499P. That's the state of things in GTP right now. We keep our eyes on Jake Jackson here in the 753, the 1.9 racing machine. He's had a very good run. We haven't given him the most airtime of anyone, but he's been consistently fighting in and around the top 6 in GT3. Dylan Jordan has gotten some pace back after taking that pit stop after his contact earlier, and is steadily gaining on him. But this Mercedes is still working his way through very nicely. One of the most positions gained in the GT3 field.
He's only beaten now by David Johnson, who's down in 11th in class. But still picked up 9 places in class in this race. And in fact, that makes them the 2 drivers who have gained the most places in their own class of the race outright. So props to them both. And they are set to go to the end, if I'm not mistaken. So something, no, 7 laps into a stint for Jake. He's going to the end. 11 laps for David is still going to be enough to make it to the end from here. As our last couple of stops, starting with Ben Doherty after a 27-lap stint, will come out along with Thomas Hinz there. 27 laps complete for him as he will depart the lane and make his way for the racetrack once again. Drivers still to pit in GTP. Need to see Ewan Baker needing fuel to make it home. Santos, Kabani, and Doherty will just reset here in a second. He's completed his stop. Once he finally makes it out of the lane. So I feel it's been a long time for him, but there you go, he's out. D Mole, only other car running GTP. So 4 GTPs are to stop race. LMP2s are set. GT3s are all set as well by the looks of things, except Dan Stevens.
Yes, of course. We've got to remember Dan Stevens was the... Oh, that's another little bit of contact for Dylan Jordan. He's been bashed about quite a bit by prototypes in this last half of the race. Yeah, Dan Stevens, the first car to basically take the stop that was good enough to get him home, currently 8th. And as things stand, I don't see him gaining much more from that. Pretty much every other car ahead of him is going to be able to make it home. So if Stevens wants a top 7, top 6, maybe even a top 5, he's going to have to rely on some pretty significant developments regarding incidents in the top half of the GT3 field. And even then, looks like a very slim chance of that happening. There's a bit more of a chance of a position change here between Chris Yatito and Robbie Bradbury for 9th place. Yatito in one of the McLarens in this field, and there's been some star drives in the McLarens, particularly Marcus Konietzka, who's found himself in a consistent top 5 position all race long. But it will be McLaren versus Ford here, with Yatito versus Bradbury. And you know, balance of performance in GT3 it always makes it close, but I still have a little chuckle to myself every time I see the Ford Mustang up against any other car in GT3, because it looks so much bigger, so much taller. You'd think it punches a lot more of a hole through the air, but the balance of performance works it out such that it's quite competitive with the other cars in the class.
That it does, and it's almost a minor miracle with the way the balance of performance triggers and levers that are pulled to get these things roughly in line with each other, and then you make some more tweaks to power, to weight when you get to an actual race event to make the final adjustments to get them as close as you can. And in the ideal world, you get yourself a thrilling battle where most manufacturers have a stab at winning the race. Gap down to 15 seconds on the way to turn 1. We'll hover in the mid 15 seconds for Ewan Baker versus Sam Sutton. So it is going the way of the 680 machine here in these closing 15 minutes. Baker pressing on despite owing us that stop for fuel. James Walker, gap is stabilising out front somewhat, but last lap, big chunk of time lost to Lock and Cable in behind.
Yeah, half a second. That's pretty significant. Having to deal not just with prototypes finding his way past him, but he's also having to find his way past lapped cars in his own class, which is a little bit more difficult to deal with, you'd say, as a GT driver. You want to try and lose as little time as you can, but when you have other cars around here who are in their own race, I think Jason Martin, the car up ahead here of James Walker as he finds his way onto the back stretch, yeah, there's just one more twist in the tail right to the end of this race. You know, I've been thinking in the last couple of minutes, I know that balance of performance is an integral part of GT3 racing and sports car racing in general worldwide, but there's a part of me that just wants to see the restrictions lifted on GT3s. I want to see what the cars are really like, because they all have, you know, air restrictors and extra weight that they have to carry. Take all of that off and see what the real pecking order is in GT3 these days. What do you think?
That'd be a fascinating concept. I mean, yeah, say they should give them an aero coefficient and maybe a power to weight ratio, perhaps, because you probably need some degree of metric to say this is what you need to be around, because otherwise you're going to have cars that. But again, if you just give them a power to weight ratio, then that means you could have a super lightweight but underpowered car having to go up against the high-powered but weightier cars as a result. And
yeah,
you could dial in your cars as a manufacturer to say, okay, we're going to optimize. But then I guess at that point, I guess what do? I mean, you probably go for the lighter weight options. That probably also means you look after the car and its tires better.
Yeah, I mean, the point I'm making is, like, we don't know what the real pace of any GT3 car actually is, though, right? Because all of them have some kind of restriction or buff to bring them all within line with all the other cars in the class. So I don't know, a one-off test in the real world with none of the balance of performance restrictions applied, and yeah, just see how fast they actually are, because I remember...
Oh, dear.
Oh, Konitska. Yeah, I just saw that myself. Konitska going to lose out a bit here in the McLaren. He's going to remain fourth, not under threat for position, but regardless, not entirely the best sequence of events for him. How did this happen?
Well, he has not escaped without any penalty because, well, he very nearly could have been disqualified for driving the wrong way around the circuit here. So it's happened at the dog leg. Now, is this happened by... No, here comes a Tech 1 out GTP.
Oh, God, that's bad. Oh.
And there's the other side of the road. And, yeah.
Ouch.
Unfortunately, he's just shortcut the entire Western Horseshoe, and despite the fact the game sees that he's gone, and that was the Tech 1 car pulling up alongside him for a moment.
Now, was it Mookie or was it Moyes?
I'm going to have a quick look here. It was Julian Mookie who came up on him there entering the dogleg.
Yeah, you don't want to see that. I mean, I think Mookie would have thought that he could pull alongside in time for the turn-in point of the kink, but when you're a prototype driver, and I've driven prototypes here before in long races, if you're not alongside the GT3 before you turn in, you might as well just stay behind. Look at this. Mookie has a great run of speed, but he just went for the move too late. It was never going to happen.
Yeah, I would generally agree that needs to be sort of the course of action you play. You've got the speed, but you need to be there well before the corner, so the GT driver knows they need to adjust how they're going to approach that dogleg. As back to live pictures we go, and Ewan Baker out of the pit lane, and the gap is now 17 seconds, but it's in the favour still of Sam Sutton. So despite having a 12-second shorter stop to get fuel only in the car, it has, well, basically flipped almost perfectly back the other way here, Reese. So less than 10 minutes to go, coming up on 9. Sutton in the box seat in GT3. Garen Batten looking handy in LMP2. But our GT3 race lead is undecided and, well, nearly half a second, more than 6/10, but only 900ths on the last lap. Lachlan Capel is back, almost within spitting distance for the first time since his initial error at the Western Horseshoe. And we await to see. He's got time, but he needs to now get to him properly and then be able to set up a move.
Yeah, here we go. 8.5 minutes remaining, and James Walker, all he's really hoping from here is that other cars will stymie the run of Lachlan Capel in the battle for the GT3 lead. Basically, the only battle that's really going on for any significant position in any of these classes. We still have the 9th and 10th place GT3 battle between Bradbury and Yatito, and then 11th and 12th between Johnson and Ebersol. But apart from that, everything has worked out such that there's at least a few seconds between almost every car out there, except, of course, for this lead fight. And Capel just finding his way past a car on the way into the Le Mans chicane. Walker leaving Stuart Elder behind him there in the McLaren, and that means Capel will potentially pick up some slipstream here. There's still plenty to go in this race for our GT3's 5 laps remaining according to my timing. On the top of the screen, James Walker. On the bottom, Lachlan Capel. Just crossing the line there is James, and Lachlan is 2.5 seconds behind. If he can keep gaining a few tenths a lap, he might be able to find his way past, but he's going to have to count on James Walker being slowed up somehow if he really wants to get this done.
And an update from Stuart observing the session here for this split and region of the Majors Series. Unfortunately for Marcus Knitska, he is not going to have that black flag cleared after the contact with Julian Mookie, so he is going to have to trundle down the pit lane and serve the course cut penalty. There it is, flashing up on the screen right now, which I have to say is rather unfortunate for him, I'd say, when it's like, yeah, there's no way to get back to the track and prevent that penalty from being applied automatically.
Yeah, and it was definitely not Knitska's fault that happened.
At the same time, the general rule in most leagues often is, yeah, we won't clear iRacing penalties. I guess it's just a question of, well, when can you permit any leeway for particular circumstances? It feels like maybe that was one of those ones that perhaps could have been, because it looks like also Knitska, well, he's actually in his pit box right now, has been for 40 seconds. I'm starting to feel like he might have just decided, well, that will do me for this one here today.
Well, on board the Corvette, now he's in the slipstream of Stuart Elder. But there's still a fair amount of time between himself and James Walker. The gap has come down by 0.4 of a second at the end of this lap. It's now 2 seconds between our GT3 leaders, and Capel nice and gentle on the way into turn 1. Got to try and carry as much speed as you can through the corner while simultaneously making sure that you don't overshoot and compromise on your exit speed. See that? Capel did 0.4 of a second out on that last lap. That's exactly the kind of gain that he was looking for.
Yep, he's going to need those every lap here to the finish to be on the gearbox in time to be able to get a feel for what Walker's got, and needs to and be able to then set up a run. So got passed by Sam Sutton just before the dog leg, so he should have been able to get through there fine. And we'll see here, Sutton's going to catch Walker, but do it after turn 6 and get up the inside there with the four-wheel drive traction the Ferrari possesses, which is not technically right, but It's being worked on, just it's a bit of a long-term project apparently.
Yeah.
Alas, this is the battle we worry about. This is the battle we are looking for. And it's come down a couple more tenths, Reese, on this current lap. Capel has the slipstream of lap traffic in between him and Walker. It's Mark Newton in the Middle Finger Racing Ford Mustang. And Capel's going to get that draft all the way around to the start-finish here. This is about as perfect as you could ask for if you're Capel. And looks good through the bus stop, the Le Mans chicane. He's gained another tenth or two there as well, Reese.
Yep, circumstance smiling on Lachlan Capel right now as we have 4 minutes to go in this race. We are closing in on the checkered flag and projecting 3 laps to go for our GT3s. For our GTPs, it's looking like 3 laps to go as well, and just over 3 laps remaining for our LMP2s as well. So everything should look good there. And the fastest lap of all the GT3s in this race so far just went to Lachlan Capel, 1 minute 43.6, and another 4 tenths taken out on James Walker here, who's also had to go wide to let a prototype through. So everything is coming up Lachlan right now.
Just what he needs. He's gonna, and there's another 2 or 3 tenths, and he'll get the draft proper. He might be feeling a whiff of the draft here on this run out of turn 6. The other issue is now he's the one who's got cars a little further back. It's actually they'll get him around the oval without too much fuss, which should be fine here. Yeah, it's all come down to where Sam Sutton is. Sam is now in front of these 2 guys. They're going to be dictated by Sam and his position on the track. So Sam coming around now will be. Pardon me, as I'm talking about this, he's going to have 2 laps to go here at the line, and that's going to mean our GT3 drivers will also have 2 to go, given where they are relative to him. As there you go, through the Le Mans chicane, Ewan Baker clears Walker on the exit. He cleared Capel, I believe, beforehand. There go 1.17. Actually a little slow out for Capel, and in fact losing a couple of hundredths. So maybe the Mercedes has got a last little bit of punch through the Le Mans chicane on this particular, or is it traffic? We'll see here. He's actually losing time as we click out. Is this actually a case of the Mercs actually looking? Finally, it comes down right at the end of the run to turn 1. So Mercedes perhaps better out of the turn, and Corvette better, but infield or the run to the Le Mans chicane, that's where Capel's doing the magic. Another 4 tenths gained, Reese.
Oh, now Walker has to go wide for the prototype of Shane Bowen, and Lachlan Capel's right on the back of him now. They have to make way for a GTP. That's Thomas Hinz there, running 4th at the moment in the GTP class. And a couple of prototypes together ahead is never good news if you're a GT driver. There's always something that can go wrong there, but fortunately they work their way through nicely. And it's on now for the GT3 lead with a mere 75 seconds remaining on the race timer. Can Lachlan Capel do what is required and catch up to James Walker to make it an Aussie win in GT3, as well as GTP with Sam Sutton leading the way from Ewan Baker? The white flag flies for the 680, and Sutton with over 16 seconds in hand merely has to bring it home from here and be the first overall winner of the 2025 Majors season. But it's still a lot left to run here for the top 2. Bad news for Dan Stevens. He's ended up being a lap short. He took that final pit stop all that time ago, but he could only make it 32 laps, and he needed 33. The white flag flying for Lachlan Capel and James Walker as they make their way down to turn 1. Capel gaining just a slightly wider entry into turn 1. He hooks up the apex a bit better than Walker as well. And there could be a pass here on the infield if he works his way through properly. He's not going to get it done here at the International Horseshoe, but he might have a chance at the Western Horseshoe.
I have to see here, because the last couple of laps, Walker's looked strong on the exit of the Le Mans chicane, and it's taking Capel all the way to the end of the run to turn 1 to get something done. I hope he knows that, if that's in the back of his mind, because if he leaves it to the very end, I get the feeling this might be a bit of the non-close, and then he's never been this close. So here we go. The runs out of the infield now, and it's going to become the draft games for Lachlan Capel versus James Walker. But indeed, bottom of the screen, we need to take our attention as well to your overall race winner of Sam Sutton. He will take the GTP class, an overall race win for us here tonight in the 680 Ferrari 499P. And in due course, Garen Batten will also get to claim honours in the LMP2 class. But the eyes are all here on GT3 as they also negotiate lap traffic as well.
On the run up to the Le Mans chicane, then Capel needs to nail this exit if he wants to pass James Walker. The fireworks are already going off for our overall winner, but now it all comes down to the slipstream. Who's going to get the silverware here in the GT3 class? Will it be James Walker or will it be Lachlan Capel? The slipstream is there for the Corvette, but the Mercedes has that punch out of the corner. Here we go. It's going to be defensive here. Walker's going to have to force Capel up high, or will Capel try and go for the bottom here? It's going to be just Walker, only by less than half a car length. Capel tried. He did his best, but Walker in the 97 comes out on top. What a gap it was for the lead there as well. A mere few hundredths of a second between them. And Garen Batten, put your hands together for the 61. Our LMP2 winner. Masterful drive there.
100%. In fact, for the LMP2 class, only Garen Batten and Dwayne Burns will finish on the same lap there as well. So, with that there, a grand finish in the GT class as well. The prototypes are a little more understated with an 18-second margin and a 16-second margin here tonight. Deserving winners in all the classes here, you would definitely say, Reece.
Absolutely. Well, Sam Sutton brings it into the pits, and we'll have a fantastic record for the first race of the major season. This is the replay of the victory between Lachlan Capel and James Walker. Capel tried to go down to the apron. You are allowed to go down there to try and gain a position, but that's what it was in the end. Just a mere meter or two separating the two of them right at the end of the race. James Walker should walk away from that feeling very happy, and Lachlan Capel as well, considering what happened to him earlier on in the race after starting from pole position, to be able to just be shy of victory at the end of a 2.4-hour race. Yeah, you have to recognize the capability in that.
I'm also, we're just being told that James Walker was tight on fuel as well. I'm going to go on board real quickly on my own end here just to confirm this. Listen out, apparently I'll listen for it here and confirm. Coming to the line. Sounds full throttle to me, but maybe there was the tiniest hint of a cough there.
Right, so
but awfully close indeed.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see that on board here for James Walker. All comes down to that throttle application right there, and he's just foot to the floor for the rest of the lap here. And he would have looked down at the rear-facing camera to see Lachlan Capel right behind him on the front bumper. I mean, you have to keep an eye on the revs here as well. And listen in to the revs. Yeah, I think he would have been just on the verge of coughing if he was tight on fuel. Regardless, all that matters is that you have enough. And in the GTP class, 18 seconds is the gap between Sam Sutton and Ewan Baker at the end. That decision to take the short stop early for Sam Sutton really worked things out for him. They are the only two finishers on the lead lap here. Luke Santos completing the podium in the 6:04. Well done to Luke, holding off the likes of Thomas Hinz, Ben Doughty, Zeke Kabani, and Scott Hasler. Bevan Moyes, a bit of a rough race there to finish in 8th. Dean Moll coming home in 9th, with Brandon Groch rounding out the top 10, 2 laps down with an early spin in the race. The field rounded out by Jason Lottridge, Julian Mookie, and Stephen Hassett. In LMP2, meanwhile, Garen Batten and Dwayne Burns were your top 2, and they finished on the same lap. Harold Stadler gets the podium a lap down on them, with Shane Bowen and Hayden Kirk inseparable for practically the whole race, fighting for fourth. It went in Bowen's favour in the end. Ray Partridge, he had a couple of spins on the way to that sixth place, could have been a bit higher, and Robert Northway, well, he did have the number one on his car, but wasn't quite a number one drive for him this time round. Still finished on the same lap as everyone else there in the LMP2 class, with Travis Walling, our only retirement thanks to a hardware failure. Northway managed to get an extra lap in as well, just due to the way things worked out there. How does it look in GT, Dan?
Well, yeah, as you said, eyes glued to the screens there for our run to the line with James Walker, 26 thousandths of a second clear of Lachlan Capel at the line. Lachlan's actually already just mentioned in the broadcast chat that he's ruining the fact that, well, between his own mistake at the start of the race, but 4 slowdowns across the course of the race to end up that close to James by the checkered flag. What could have been if even just one of those things was different? You have to say what could have been. But behind them, it was Matt Stewart who brings it up to third place in the 1.9 Mercedes AMG for third, ahead of Dean Mackay, also trying to recover there towards the end, but a tougher task for him there in the Venture IPM Sport by TSR Porsche after settle for fourth place. And Jake Jackson, your last car on the lead lap in GT3, the second of the 1.9 Mercedes there in fifth place. So Dylan Jordan, Robbie Bradbury, Chris Tito, David Johnson, and John Ebersol. They're a lap down to round out your top 10 in class, and joining them a lap down in class as well. We look to the next page, which will have Marcus Kiniska in 11th, Robert Deloach in 12th, Stuart Elder in 13th place. I should also note close battles to the line, actually less than 2/10 seconds back previously with Bradbury and Utito for 7th, 4/10 between Johnson and Ebersol for 9th, and another 4/10 here between Deloach and Stuart Elder for 12th place here in the class. And then for Dan Stevens there, as you said, that final run there, having to add an extra bit of fuel, unfortunately, commits to 14th place. Jason Martin, 15th for him in behind, and then Gavin Cox, 16th as well. The last car a lap down, with Gavin Barber finishing 2 laps down, Mark Newton 6 laps down on our class leaders, and I believe our last finishing driver with then Bradley Sinney 19th and Leon Dupree, our 2 drivers retiring from the GT3 class, and rounding out your provisional results of the Daytona 2.4 here race.
Indeed. Well, we can move to chats with our class winners, and we start, of course, with Sam Sutton. Phenomenal drive, Sam, and the Ferrari 499P certainly seemed to be a car that suited you today. It was all about the strategy, though. That first pit stop really set things up for the rest of the race.
Yeah, I knew Ewan would keep me honest in the start of the race, just with Acura on maximum wing is going to be quick to warm up compared to the Ferrari. So got that through with the first run through traffic, got about 5 seconds over 2 laps there. And then, just played the fuel strategy, so I wasn't near him for the rest of the race. So he couldn't stay in the tow. And, just kind of had to do my own thing out there and not shunt any GT3s.
Yeah, the Ferrari, the newest car to be added to the prototype classes here on iRacing. It does have a bit different technical specs to the GTPs, particularly the addition of 4-wheel drive as well. Did you find that was to your advantage at any point?
Not really, no. The little patch they did midweek, which kind of fixed the braking a little bit, it means we're not as much of a disadvantage as we were prior to that little update. But no, it's great in a straight line, and it's got a good front end in the bus stop. So you can run minimum wing here, and it's quite easy to do. So yeah, Ferrari's actually, I think it'll be strong here and anything that needs to be low downforce.
Excellent stuff. Well, looking forward to the rest of the season. Obviously, this is a prep for the iRacing Daytona 24 for a lot of teams, but can we expect you in future rounds of the majors as well?
I think so. The free races look pretty appetizing, and they're all sort of around the good special events. So thankfully this year they've kind of opened up the bigger races of the major series to sort of free entry. So I think you'll see a few more people stick around.
Excellent stuff. Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go, Sam?
Just thanks to the guys at Orbit Drop Bear for the spot tonight, just to make sure I didn't shoot myself in the foot with strategy, and Revolution Race Gear for coming on board on the car.
Lovely stuff. Sam Sutton on top here in round 1 of the international in the GTP class. In LMP2, meanwhile, Dan, we had Garen Batten storming to victory.
Yeah, we did indeed, and welcome into the commentary box here, Garen. And I think there was maybe one phase of the race there where I think it was Dwayne Burns tried an alternate strategy to you, which saw him take the lead for a couple of laps there. But because it was such a good race for you, unfortunately, we didn't see a lot of it. So, what was it like from your cockpit getting through on top here today?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Yeah, the race somewhat straightforward, but I mean, multi-class is never quite straightforward, is it? So, yeah, there was always plenty going on, especially with being the middle class, both passing and being passed. So, yeah, there was plenty going on, but yeah, I just sort of tried to keep things nice and smooth, make sure that they never picked up any damage. Didn't really push the envelope in terms of getting past other cars, and tried to make it really obvious to GTPs when they were coming past what I was going to do, and yeah, just kind of ran my pace. So yeah, worked out okay.
It sure did for you indeed. And speaking about the middle class, but also the LMP2 in particular here in this circumstance, obviously a couple of tweaks since or over the Christmas break, this New Year break, and I think part of it is just to sort of slow it down a little bit and to maybe get some gap to the GTP cars. Um, Anything in particular about it? Had you driven it sort of shortly prior to the update, or at a notable event prior to the update? And did you feel anything different racing here today with those changes?
Yeah, so this is the first race I've done since the update, and it took me literally all week to change my brain to listen for the right engine note when to change gears. Like I just kept throwing the thing into the limiter over and over and over and over and over again because they've lowered the rev limit down to 8,000. So yeah, it took me all week to retrain my brain, and even in the race today, there was a few times where yeah, just didn't shift up when I was supposed to, so I'd go straight into the limiter, which made me feel like a bit of a douche. But anyway, yeah, other than that, it drove the same way that it always has through corners and that sort of stuff. So yeah, it was okay. It was just getting that engine note right in my head.
And cold tires seem to be a thing that caught a few people out, unfortunately. Was that a thing also? Making sure you're part of obviously today, getting things right and not overdriving it when you came out of the pits, or even on that race start and restart right at the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. I took it really, really carefully on all of those, all the outlaps, or both the start and the restart. I mean, the 2 hour practice session beforehand, any running that I did was literally 2 laps, come in, put cold tires on, go out again, do the same thing over and over, just because it was this really strange phenomenon of you get understeer through both the horseshoes, and then when you're coming onto the oval, suddenly the rear just wanted to take off. So yeah, just understanding how hard you could push. And I was fortunate there at the last couple of stops, I could sort of take it easy and just let the car really come in, and I had some time to spare. So yeah, it definitely would have caught some people out. Fortunately, I was ready for it, so yeah, just managed that as I needed to.
And of course, major series for the rest of the year. You guys here at Fusion have been a big part of the series, both on track and also behind the scenes. Um, what are sort of any events in particular coming up after this that you're particularly keen on, or is it really going to be a case of you take it all as it comes and look forward to each and every one of them the same?
Yeah, I'll be doing all of the rounds and real life, allowing. But yeah, so there's some guys in the fusion squad that are really really good at some oval stuff and getting setups for that. So hopefully, my record on ovals and majors is pretty good. So I'm looking forward to some of the oval stuff. But yeah, I mean, sports cars is my thing really. So the fact that there's I think sports car races, or sorry, three prototype races on the series this year. They're the ones that I'm really looking forward to because yeah, that's kind of my bread and butter. So yeah.
Oh, floor's all yours here, Garen, to make your thanks and sign us. Who gets it done for you here
Yeah,
today?
yeah. So thanks to Majors Garage for the setup today. Yeah, that was really awesome. To Speed for the support that they give, both to the series or this series and to the Majors Endurance Championship. Registrations for that open on Monday. Make sure you get your team in for that. And yeah, just to the rest of the Fusion guys for all the support and the help that they've done with setup work this week. And yeah, to you guys here at Speed, thanks for doing the coverage today.
There we are. Thank you very much. Garen Batten, your LMP2 race winner here today at the Daytona 2.4. And that leaves us with just one final driver to bring in, James Walker, our GT3 winner. Hand back to you, Reese, to have a chat with him here.
Yeah, what a drive, James. You certainly fell under a lot of pressure from Lachlan Capel in the final stint, and we did get word that you were tight on fuel right at the end of the race. Is that true?
No, no, I had plenty of fuel. I was just lacking on like pure pace, really.
All right, fair enough. So you were all good on fuel at the very end, but still, mighty close finish between yourself and Lachlan, and he was fighting his way through the field. Pretty much, he had to do it pretty much twice over in that race, but you just found yourself there in the top few positions and continued working on what was already very strong pace at the start.
Yeah, if Lachlan had not had those couple incidents, he would have ran away with it. I did not have the pace to compete with him. I just managed to, stay out of incidents and drive through while other people were having their own incidents.
Yeah, indeed. Well, rather other than that, maximum points for you in the GT3 class to start off the season. Next up, of course, is the classic Daytona 500 and the NASCAR 87s. Are you looking forward to that as much as we are?
Oh, I'm looking forward to it a lot. The last time I did majors, well, the last season we ran the 87s at Daytona, and I came second. So I'm hoping to do a little bit better. Bring a coin with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, here's hoping, James. Fantastic stuff. Congratulations on your victory. Is there anyone you want to shout out?
Yeah, I want to thank the Fusion guys. They pulled me out of retirement. Majors guys for putting this on, and you guys for doing the broadcast. Thanks.
Well, James Walker certainly coming away with a result he can be satisfied with there. Brilliant run in the GT class. Well, guess what, Dan? Things just continue on here in the major series. It's only the start of the season. Next month, we have the Intimidator, Daytona 500, featuring the 87 Cup cars. And we've already experienced the wonders of these 87 cars on an oval. And I can't wait to see how this Daytona 500 ends up going.
Full throttle, well, if you can make it stick, that is, and that's not exactly an easy thing in these 87 machines. And going back, if I'm not mistaken, to a bumpier time at Daytona as well to go with the old school theme as well. So whilst the track is going to look somewhat the same, it's going to drive a fair bit different, and the cars are going to drive a fair bit different, but it is going to be action-packed. And, well, of course, the other thing being is iRacing will be in charge of the cautions, and there's a good possibility we might have a few as a result. But nevertheless, whether I'm on broadcast or I'm going to be around and watching the event, or maybe, I don't know, have a bit of a steer perhaps or something like that, if I can muscle up the courage to try and wheel one of these things around, I'll be looking forward to seeing what comes up next time here in the international region of the Major Series.
As will I, as will we, as will you, hopefully, out there watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Kick. Thank you so much for joining us here today for the first round of the return of the international region of the Majors Series. And we hope to see you next time. I'm Reese Gardner, Dan Yeaman with me in the commentary box, Jay Kennedy behind the scenes. We're SimSpeed TV. We'll see you next time.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.